Someone's going to go for 2 and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number 1. Shocker. Iron.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go. Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. This is episode 70. This is John Bruce, along with Shayne Combs. Hope everyone's having a great week. Appreciate Dewey stepping in last week to do what he's done for most of the shows, which is kind of lead the episode, but also take care of it, getting everything up and out. And we appreciate everyone viewing as well. So glad to be back. I was on an airplane last week whenever you guys were filming. So this week we are filming on a Monday, and actually I was not on an airplane. The episode was out, so I'm way off on that. I don't even know where I've been. So I was probably at the baseball game. I was probably sad because the Cubs had
I think
lost.
we actually referenced that you probably weren't having as much fun there as you could have been.
Yeah, so that was ballpark 27 of 30. Dewey said he wasn't sure if I got to the Oakland Coliseum. Actually did get to the Oakland Coliseum on the same weekend last year. That was one of our, I think that was number 24. The plan was that was supposed to be number 30 because it was like, you go to San Francisco, that's one of the best.
Right.
And then you go to the worst after, which was the Coliseum, but ended up not working out because the Coliseum closed. But I will say, if you've been to a lot of them, I know you've been to a lot of baseball games and whatnot, like, it's hard to find just bad about these places.
It really is. First of all, it's remarkable what you're doing there. I know a couple other people, so I think I know total maybe 3 or 4 people that have done that, and they're up in the 20s to the point where they've done it, seriously enough to get that close, which I think is remarkable. But no, you do. I'm sure you've seen a lot of things, and then you take in a lot of history, and you obviously have your favorite team, but at the same time, you're just a fan of baseball. So that's just a remarkable thing. That's going to be a really cool just collection of memories that you've been able to do there.
Yeah, when people ask, and they're like, I'm just guessing Wrigley's probably your favorite because, Cubs fan, I'm saying, when I rank these later, like whenever we get all done, I'm gonna rank it out of 29 because I don't want to because I'll be
Yeah.
biased towards Wrigley, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Fenway is awesome, Camden Yards is awesome, and really San Diego, San Francisco. So those ones are probably in the top 4 regardless. But really, there's not much bad out there. I will say, I could tell my mom was tired after this last one, so we will. We're going to try to finish next year because the possible strike coming up. But ultimately,
Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun, and it's really been. I think Pittsburgh was a little bit before because we just went there because it was close, but we've gone to the other 26 within the last 8 years, and really that counts. That doesn't the COVID year. We obviously didn't go anywhere, and
Yeah.
then it's just been a lot. So my biggest advice is to just find stuff that's cheap. Like find hotels that are a deal and it's not too bad, and then yeah, so it's it adds up. But at the same time, if you don't go out to eat or you don't do a whole lot during the year, you can save up for it. So um, I know people that like to go to college games and see different campuses and whatnot. Like anything you want to do, just plan it out. And that's what we have this week is we think a very good show.
I think it's probably my favorite agenda at this point. I think we have a lot of different things, a lot of variety. So if you love high school sports, I think you'll enjoy the whole show. As always, John does such a good job of getting the timestamps out there and so forth. So you'll be able to look through and find your favorite parts. But we really do. We have a variety on the agenda this week.
Yeah, we're going to cover our typical football, volleyball, soccer. Maybe not in that order, but we're also going to talk some conference realignment, some school atmospheres, and then also we're going to talk golf to end the episode. So hopefully here in the next week or so we can jump on cross country as well to get one of our kind of lesser covered sports, but also we know maybe no sport works harder than cross country because You ran it, right?
Well,
That
that
technically,
was
you
about 30 years and
yeah.
about 120 pounds ago. But yes, for 2 years I did run cross country. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, so we got a cross country expert here in Shayne
Yes,
Combs,
yes.
and also golf
You can tell by
expert.
just looking at my physique there that I'm a daily runner.
Yeah, so it was another big week in our coverage area, but man, we gotta talk about one of the best performances of our all time. You covered him pretty much through 2 sports last year, Cartae Ligon, Chillicothe. Anytime I think Chillicothe has to be if they aren't over 100 years of playing football, they are close. I think maybe they might have been the one that I saw was at year 99 of football,
Mm.
but he broke a program record for rushing yards in a game, 420 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, and here's maybe my favorite part of this, a 35-16 win. So it's not like they're running the score up.
Right.
It's not like they weren't needed. These were all necessary. We were doing me and Jeff Miller, Christian Spradlin with the Coaches Call-In show. Make sure you check that out on Friday nights. We were getting texts from both Dewey and Jacob Wise about the game because they're calling the games, for someone other than Sosa, and they're giving updates on what he's doing. And I got to see him last year at Portsmouth West. He was very impressive. But man, could you just talk about what he brings to the table overall?
Yeah, it was such a pleasure just to get to watch him have his breakout rookie season a year ago. Got a chance to call 10 of his football games and then probably three-fourths of his basketball games. And I think we throw the term special out there quite a bit, but here it certainly applies. I mean, I watched him a year ago hurdle a guy down the sideline from Wilmington, and then in basketball, there's a couple times where he just catch the ball in a scrimmage area. Last year, as a freshman, he's probably playing right around 6 foot 175, I'm guessing, and just take a dribble or two right out of the scrimmage area, go off 2 feet, and dunk it. You know what I
Mhm,
mean? So like just things that I've been watching high school sports for a long time, and so we understand what is good. We understand what is skilled. We understand this was an athleticism that was so unique and like, yeah, I haven't seen that before.
mhm,
I mean, like it really is that level. And a quick story for me, John, is my favorite player growing up was Eddie George.
mhm,
Um, Eddie George was a Heisman winner there about my senior year of high school, and he was at Ohio State. He went on, like I even had the old school Tennessee Oilers.
nice.
Like a lot of people don't even remember that when they were the Houston Oilers and they
Mhm,
moved to Tennessee. They played like in Memphis for a year or two. They actually kept the Oilers name. So I've got that. And I just always followed him. And he was awesome. He probably played at like 6'3", 240, and he was so durable. So
mhm,
he was a guy who obviously in the NFL he was on the team that was literally 1 yard short of overtime in the Super
mhm,
Bowl. And the stat that jumps out at me about him, and I promise there's a point here. I'm just not going back to my childhood. The He was only one of two guys, along with Jim Brown, to rush for over 10,000 yards without missing a start in
mhm,
his career. So he was durable. And the reason I say all that is to say this about Cartae. When you watch him at the high school level in today's modern day football, you'll see them on the position a lot of times just put athlete. Kids are becoming so unique, they almost don't even know what to call them. Do we call them a running back? Do we call them a slot wide receiver? Whatever it may be. And there's such a stereotype of what a running back should look like.
mhm,
I mean, in the NFL, I'm guessing probably 5'10, 5'11 to what, 20? I don't
mhm,
know. Is probably what you would think. But when you watch a taller, because now as a sophomore, I believe Carte's listed like 6'1", 185.
mhm.
So I understand he's a little bit taller, but who cares? Like, I
Right.
mean, it's one of those like just handing the ball. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, it's one of those things where he's fast, he's quick, he has great vision, he has good patience. Then he finishes the run so physical,
Mhm,
but then it's also that durability. Last year they kind of made the jump to him in the backfield right around week 3. Because again, I understood that as a freshman, they're probably worried about the
mhm,
durability a little bit. But like as the year went on, he just went stronger and stronger. It's like the big Miami
mhm,
Trace upset late in the year.
mhm,
He was just so unique. So um, I love the taller, running back, that athlete, and the way it's just a pleasure to watch. I just think it's really cool. If you hadn't had a chance to see him, you really owe it to yourself just to go watch him play. And I only got a chance to meet him in passing a little bit last year, but from everything I understand, he's a terrific young man
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, and I believe we, as of now, will have them in week 6, which would be matching up with another taller Julian Baker's got some good size to him too
That's a
from
good
Miami
point.
Trace. Yeah,
Yeah,
so but that's Cartae is one of those where I would see highlights on Facebook when he was in 8th grade. I'm just like watching this dude just run away from people. But then I always remember, it's junior high.
junior high.
And,
Yeah,
maybe he's a year older. Maybe he hit a growth spurt early. Maybe he's going to even out. And then getting to watch him in person when he's a freshman, like, even if this is where he's at, like this dude's he's a dude.
yeah.
And yeah, he is a hard-nosed runner who can really get it done. And I'm sure Coach Carper, whenever he saw some highlights on him last year, was like, "Oh yeah, I'll put in for that job." The chance to coach this kid for 3 years, he's going to be something special, and I know Coach Carper's going to do a really good job with them there. And it was good to see them get their first win. And I would guess it's going to be one of many. I know they've dealt with some injuries, but overall, they're a team that's going to be fun to watch at the very least. I think the next couple weeks could be really good for them as well. Um, I mean, last year when they played West, it was a hard nosed game as well. So I think that's going to be a fun one to follow on Friday night.
I think you're right, and the coach and me, we should also give a shout out to the Chillicothe offensive line.
Yes.
Obviously, anytime you go for 400 yards or someone up front really doing a job, I think what's unique about that is the offensive line, gets you that 5, 6, 7, 8 yards, and then there's those home run hitters that turn
Mhm.
14, 15-yard gains into like 80. You know what I mean? And then it's kind of like the Sutton kid from Athens we were talking about a couple weeks back.
Mhm.
The Baker kid from Miami Trace. Those are some of those backs where you're like they hit a hole, they make a cut to the outside, and then it's like 12, 13 yards. Some guys are shoved out of bounds, and then other guys get to the corner, and it's the band's about to play. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's and Cartae certainly fits that.
Yeah, it is not an area record. Ethan Fremder from Piketon,
Okay.
back in 2014 had 461. I believe that was a Week 10 matchup with Southeastern. That was "Hey, you're a senior. Here's the ball. It's your last game." But one
The
that one that I was gonna bring up, and I wanted to get the exact number right. I'm just, of course, not being as prepared, not having it, like, pulled up immediately. Um, and, of course, I don't see it necessarily. There's a Zach Monavon, 2001, Waverly versus Menford had 404. Um, I keep seeing because I'm looking for, uh Williamsport, but there it is. Seth Harden, 442, Westfall against Waverly in week 2 of the playoffs.
okay.
You mentioned the offensive
Yeah.
line. That was a game where I get there late. Number 1 Buckeyes fall to Juice Williams in Illinois. I'm gonna go to Tays and watch this game. And
I was at that game.
it was just like, it was a really good game for the first half, and then Westfall figured out something, which was they could get massive holes on the left and right side of their line, just kind of running off tackle,
Yeah.
and Harden hit those holes. And when it ended up being 442 yards, it ended up, you hear that, and it's crazy because those holes were so big.
Yeah.
But like Cartae, he hit those holes so hard
Yeah.
that if it was just a little bit of a hole, it didn't matter. He was just blowing it open, and that's what you need. That was the best rushing performance I've ever seen, and it was a lot because of the line, and I'm sure Cartae would give a lot of credit to his line as well.
No question.
Yeah, so, oof, man, just it's hard to move on from that. We will get back to football in just a minute, but, going on to conference realignment. This week, Logan was accepted into the Mid-State League to join the Buckeye division, which because Tays moved on to the OCC at the same time as Logan. That made it to where they had an imbalance. They had 7 teams, and now that'll put it back to 8. So I think it was pretty easy fit in that way. Logan was bigger, so they went to the OCC, and it's just they're technically, I mean, in the area around Columbus, but it's still pretty rural, and it's hard for those rural schools to compete in the Ohio Capital Conference with schools that are primarily city-ish, areas. Now, a lot of it is in suburbs, but ultimately, it's hard to keep kids in a school district that big to have kids consistently be able to play sports because sometimes in those school districts,
Yeah.
and we have a lot of school districts here in the southeast where you know they're so spread out. It's hard for them to keep kids able to play.
But it's hard to draw kids
Yeah.
in today's movement with open enrollment and with the way the college game is starting to dwindle down with that transfer portal
Mhm.
society. It's hard to keep kids or to draw kids. There's a couple things you said there, John, that jump out at me that I love about the move. First of all, I think the even numbers really
Mhm.
important. I know some conferences get away with it and they figure it
Yeah.
out, but for me, I think the even numbers really important. It's league night. Everybody
Mhm.
plays. It's fair. It's convenient. It's easy to schedule, so it sets up well for your non-league scheduling and those types of things. So I think that's really good. Um, Logan falls into that D1 and now I say D1, that's kind of an old school
Right.
thought now because of the seven. Now it'd be what more of a D3,
Either.
maybe even D2,
Yeah.
maybe. So you're talking about a pretty big school there. So, but I also think it's important, and that's where I love these conferences that are really becoming a modern day thought process
Mhm.
of let's be creative, let's move on, let's invite new, let's try to keep things at a competitive balance that make for really good because I think that's what makes for really good leagues, as we've talked about before, some of the rivalries and some of the competitiveness and so forth. And really, that's at all levels. So um, the travel I felt this the other night when we were going on some long trips last week. Like, I
Mhm.
couldn't believe how quick I got to Gallia Academy the
Right.
other night. If you think back to you know, for a US history lesson, right? People settled around water, and then we had railroad, and
Yeah.
then we had, and we started flying and technology. In a modern day sense, in all seriousness, in the last 20 to 25 years, think about in our coverage area how the roads have improved.
Mhm.
So when you think of conference realignment, you think of from 23 to 35 and to 32 and what 33 has done and the 820, whatever that is down in
823.
Lucas
That's
Valley.
my favorite thing.
And, there's a lot of different things. And it really is the 207 connector here
Mhm.
locally. Like there's a lot of things, you know, in the last 20 years or so that have allowed us to get to schools in a much quicker way than we used to. And I think it's opened up some opportunities more for schools. Like I said, I think it really surprised some people to just take a look at how long it takes you to get to schools. And I
Mhm.
bet it's not as long as you think it is in many situations.
Well, you mentioned even just the 207 connector. Going from, formerly coaching at Uniota, going from Uniota to St. Trace,
Sure.
not mileage not long at all. Sometimes could take a really long time because you'd had to go onto Bridge Street.
Yeah.
Now, Chillicothe residents, think about going on Bridge Street right now to go to a game. Like, you had
Yeah.
to leave 15 minutes earlier than you would have to start with.
Yeah.
But with that easy connector, it just it saves so much time. And we talked to different coaches on the call-in show where, Coach Woodard with Wheelersburg is like, how nice is that connector? And he's like, "Man, it saves like 20 minutes."
Yeah.
And it's
And
when
there's still, don't you
yeah.
feel like there's still some schools that still fall victim to that?
Mhm.
Like I remember going all the way down to Warren, or you get into some of the Waterford, Fort Fry area over there. Even here locally where I teach, Paint Valley. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like Paint Valley's still kind of out Route 50 there
Mhm.
a little bit. Now it's not as far out there as people like to make it, but
Right.
like in comparison to some of these major
Mhm.
highways, it is. So I think I do think it plays a factor in what your options are and how intriguing you are to other leagues when they look to see who they want to add.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. And it's, because I've subbed out there and people are like, "Man, why'd you pick a school that's so far away?" I'm like, "That's 20 minutes from my house. It's not bad at all.
Yeah,
I just literally turn onto the highway and just drive there." So people don't necessarily know how far away these places are, but for Logan, like, to get to Logan, you go past Amanda Clear Creek.
yeah,
Like, for us, like, whenever we go cover these regional games at Logan, you go past different schools that are in our area, and which Amanda Clear Creek, I don't know, I think Tony Williams had a big part to do with it. If Amanda's gonna be in the Southeast, which was, to me, kinda crazy that they weren't for a long time,
sure,
but, like,
sure.
Tony's taking over as AD over there, and that's gonna be a big move for Amanda. Now, it may not benefit immediately, but I would say you're gonna see Amanda down at the Convo much more often than some of the other schools that maybe haven't. But the Buckeye division now is gonna feature SOSA coverage area teams with Amanda, Circleville, Fairfield Union, Logan Elm, also Bloom Carroll, Hamilton Township, and Liberty Union. Liberty Union's the only one that's a little bit further out, but I mean, I think it's just because I haven't been there. Like,
Right.
I know they are in Baltimore, but the other one's really not that far because you're a little bit further towards Columbus and you get to Carroll, and, Hamilton Township is right on the it's right by Side of Downs,
Yeah.
which I know there's a lot of people in our area that know where Side of Downs
But
is, and, it how do you like this move for Logan? They struggled in their move to the OCC. They competed in track, but ultimately, they've struggled to get wins. The girls' programs have done well. Volleyball has done well. Their softball program's done well. But overall, how do you like this move for them?
I like it a lot. I really do. I think it's a pretty good fit on a lot of different levels. I think it's going to give them a chance to just keep their head above water a little
Mhm,
bit more in the regular season. The tournament trail might be what it is, but again, with the 7 divisions now, you are what you are.
mhm,
That's the way I say it, right?
yeah,
If you're D2, well, you're D2. That's what your enrollment is. But it is going to give them a year in, year out. Like this year, they struggled in football a little bit out of the gate. I
mhm,
mean, obviously Athens was really good and so forth, but they struggled a little bit out of the gate. I think this is going to help them over time be a little bit more competitive. I'll throw this back to you. I think Logan becomes really intriguing to other people because of their facilities
yes,
and the way, again, not that long a drive. Maybe this is just me when you're coaching and playing. If you're going to get on a bus and go play, you felt like you'd like to go play at a nice
mhm,
facility. You know what I mean? Like you if you're going to go play baseball, you'd like them to have a fence.
mhm,
If you're going to go play football, is it a nice grass field? Is it a turf field? Do they have play clocks? Do they have scoreboard? Do they have a nice concession area? Do they like for fans and stuff? You know what I mean? Like Logan is going to check so many
mhm.
boxes and atmospheres and facilities, and I think that's important.
Yes, I completely agree. And you mentioned their facilities. There's a reason why they host regional games in volleyball.
Yes.
Why they have been hosting regional games in girls basketball. It's because it's such a good facility. They hosted some district games in baseball this past year as well. They've got the best field house in the
Yeah.
district. Yeah,
Similar to Waverly on the
yeah,
district level, agree?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's great. Now, if you don't like the color purple, you're not gonna like the gym because it is very purple. But the Jim Myers Gymnasium is one of my favorite high
Yeah.
school gyms in the area. It doesn't have the 2 levels. It's a very big on each side level, but
Yeah.
it's the same size on each level. They've got a couple of different media rows where it's pretty easy and we're out of the way whenever we stream games there, which you're not always out of the way at
Yeah.
some of these places. And their admin have been great. And then maybe this will be a future Road Eats episode with Derek, but they've got the best popcorn in the Southeast District. They've got a variety of toppings that you can put on the popcorn, and then
Really?
they've got like caramel corn. It's fantastic. Like it's just good popcorn,
Yeah.
and it's something I get every time we go there for, whenever we stream games. I'll get popcorn one of the 2 days. They've got, good restaurants in the area as well, so it can be a bit of a drive. That's the only thing. I know that's kind of been a negative for people on going there for certain levels, of the tournament, but the
I would
others.
argue
Yeah.
even then it's improved over the
Yes.
years. Like when you think of some of the different
Mhm.
connectors with 33 and so
Yep.
forth, and the 22 area there. I know from Chillicothe, some people don't love the 180 cut over or
Mhm.
whatever, but again, it's much better than it once was.
Well, I'll say I think it's because people like to be on their phones, and it's definitely not safe to be on your phone
No,
while
it's not.
driving on it's not safe to be on your phone while driving anyway, but definitely not on
Yeah.
180, and plus you don't have service. So, but man, it saves so much time. I like the 180,
Yeah.
because it's an hour.
Let me
Uh,
throw this
yeah,
at you, and I don't mean to cut the Logan. If you have more Logan stuff,
yeah.
throw it back at me. But what got me thinking about facilities this
Mhm.
week was what a privilege I had to be a part of. It's some incredible volleyball
Mhm.
matches. We're going to talk about the football game I was part of.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the actual games later. But right now, like the Logan Elm Circleville volleyball, and then the Gallia Academy volleyball game was an event.
Yeah.
It was one of the coolest things I've been at all year,
Mhm.
or really in years.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got the cool floor, the
Yeah.
blue floor, and you know it's like a Division III college. You know, they
Mhm.
got the ball retrievers, they got the good PA announcer, you're signing autographs after
Yeah.
the game. Like it really was neat, and it got me thinking. Then I go to the Rock on Friday night
Mhm.
for Portsmouth West.
Yeah.
With they've got little league cheerleader and football players going on. They got like a couple hundred kids down there on the
Mhm.
sidelines, and it's just really cool.
Yeah.
So my point is like the atmosphere matters. I think like if you want to sell your school a little bit and sell your programs. Now, does winning help? No
Mhm.
question. People want to come out and watch you win. But I honestly think when it comes to boosters and it comes to community support and it comes to all these different things, there has to be that extra effort in 2025, like it or not. This is one place you cannot afford to be old school. You
Mhm.
have to be modernized. You have to have technology. You have to be willing to have media come in because the media is there to support your kids,
Yes.
right? They're there to cover your
Mhm.
kids, and all of that stuff is really important. And I think that becomes really attractive when it comes to the realignment
Mhm.
because again, it opportunity to go. Like right now, this Guy Academy volleyball program that I'll talk more about later is the start of a really good run they're about to
Mhm.
be on. That becomes a really intriguing member of a league if you love your volleyball,
Mhm.
or Portsmouth West if they love their football, or Logan, like I
Mhm.
said, as you go through these different sports. So it's just I think that's something that's really been on my mind this week because of the atmospheres I've been in.
Mhm.
Man, that's important in high school sports.
Well, and you mentioned Gaia, and we've been down there a couple different times. We streamed a basketball game a couple years ago. They're great to us down there anyway. But a couple years ago, the basketball game didn't have the upper bleachers out. They had the upper bleachers out for a volleyball game, which you don't normally see. Wheelersburg had a great crowd there,
Yeah.
coming with a nice healthy drive to get there. Um, all those kids, and you could tell those kids were just they were bought in to what they were seeing. Yes, they're very good. I mean, that helps. Like it, as you said, winning helps. But man, like, why wouldn't you want to go to when they play anybody? If you're one of those younger kids, if you're someone just there to watch volleyball, why would you skip any of their
It's
matches?
just like the
Yeah,
ball retriever girls on
yeah,
the side. You know what I mean? I don't know how old they were. They might have been JV players for all I know,
mhm,
JV, junior high,
yeah,
whatever. But like, why wouldn't you want a young kid that's a future varsity, Blue Angel,
right, yeah.
that they're down there on the court watching that 5-set thriller. It's just it makes sense. You get a lot of different people involved. I thoroughly enjoyed that Thursday night.
It was a very high level match anyway, but it's just the playing the music all the time, like,
Yeah.
playing music anytime out, uh, PA got into it big time, and then you see these players like Abby Clark, every time she's hitting, she's just letting out just a big yell, which you see at most places anyway, but if you're one of those kids on the floor level that's doing the ball retriever and you're seeing that, you're like, "That's fun."
Yeah.
That just looks like fun. Their bench was having fun.
Yeah.
I think it was Monmouth, the old, the bench mob that they
Oh
used to
yeah,
have
yeah,
for
yeah.
like, I I'm sure Monmouth got more people into their games just to watch their bench.
Yeah.
Like, just watch what those people were doing, and the bench is into it, everyone's into it. You get a big crowd, great atmosphere. Um, you know, then at the Rock, you mentioned the youth night. I was at I you know before coming over here, I can go to a game for about a half on Friday nights, and I went to one where they were doing the youth night, the youth cheerleaders, the youth football, and the youth football runs out with the team. The youth cheerleaders cheer. I don't know if they cheer for the whole game or maybe a half. The whole bleachers are completely packed, and, like, it's a football program that's on their way up and or
Well,
has been
but
up,
again,
but
someone's bringing them. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like the second grade cheerleader didn't drive herself there, right?
right,
So like
exactly.
when you do that, you're bringing your entire community in to be a part of it. Well, now they're excited because not only does their kid want to be a part of it someday, you want your kid to be a
Mhm,
part of it, and then you have a good time, and you're like, well, daggone, I think I'll come back to this volleyball game, or I think, man, I really enjoy
mm.
this football Friday night at the Rock. I'm going to make sure I get some home games.
Or they might say to their friends,
Yeah,
"Hey, we went to this game,
yeah,
like, that team's fun, like, kids had a great time,
yeah.
parking's good." You
The
could yeah,
tailgate the other night, you know what
yeah,
I mean? Like, it's smelling awfully good when I
yeah.
pull in there to set up with Carson, and set
It
it the other night.
you just have all these opportunities, and then you mentioned with the media, like, it's great for us to be there and be able to get to these things, but I'm sure some Circleville people will watch that match and we're like, "That's some good volleyball." Like, I wanna get out and watch that where
Yeah,
maybe, last year we had, like, kinda low numbers on the same match. We had, like, 900 more people watch the same match with it pretty much the same teams.
if you like
Yeah.
high school volleyball, you owe it to yourself to go back and watch Logan Elm Circleville, Wheelersburg Valley Academy
Mm,
from last week. That was phenomenal.
mhm.
I mean, that was some high level volleyball, and it was just a pleasure to be a part of.
Yeah, they've been high level matches, really good teams. We're gonna get out and see some more this week as well. You can see on our ticker below where we're gonna be tomorrow or today, I guess, because I'm gonna put this out on Tuesday. We're gonna be at Chillicothe, Miami Trace Chillicothe. If you can't watch it, if
Top
you
of the FAC on the
top
line.
of the FAC, and that's a place that has a great environment
They
as
do,
well.
they do.
So
Their students really support one another, which is really cool.
yeah, and there's so many options for people to have now. It's so important to make these games a happening. And I walked in to Guy Academy, um, a literal foot smaller than the person in front of me. Zach Loveday, a national champion at Baylor, was walking in because he's taking pictures there. But I see, they're doing the 50-50, and I didn't know they were signing the autographs until after. But they had like team pictures out. Like that's pretty cool. Like
Yeah,
I know we've went through, me and you have went through different programs that different
yeah.
schools have. Benton County has a great history of basketball. I know you and your brother had a big part of putting that together, but I mean, Uniota used to have just an immaculate program. Different schools have had great programs, and that's something like kids can look at and be like, "Oh, I want to be a part of this."
Yeah.
And it's just little things. Get the team picture out. That doesn't cost much. You probably have someone donate it, and you know, gives them, those kids a chance to, "Oh, I really enjoyed watching Grayson Clark play."
Yeah.
It's I mentioned Abby Clark, Aspen Barnes, like, yeah, like, you'll talk about her
Yeah,
later,
I have some stuff
but,
on her
uh,
later on in the show, and yeah,
like,
that's next level.
yeah, it's those types of things are what keeps the program rolling,
Great.
and you still have to do a lot of good things afterwards. You can't get lazy,
Yeah, I'm glad you
but
said that. I'm not
yeah.
saying it covers up how the kids act, how the kids play, all that stuff. It's not. What I'm saying, this is almost as much about the community and the way it's your school spirit. Like as an
Mm,
administrator, I'm
yeah.
telling you that matters.
Mhm.
I mean, I watch those kids play. I don't know the kids at all other than who they are as athletes.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if the majority of those young ladies I watched the other night aren't really good students in the classroom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the discipline on the football field, you can see with different kids and different it all goes together, I promise you.
Yeah, so 100% agree. So, we will move on a little bit. You mentioned The Rock, so we'll talk about that in a second. But also, this kind of ties in with our conference realignment. A lot of conferences are starting this week. Now, the FAC, I think, is the only one that isn't because we've got some imbalanced conferences and like the SOC where you're going to play.
Okay.
Waverly's got a Week 10 matchup with
Right.
Worthy Christian, I
There's that
believe.
odd number,
Yeah,
right?
it's an odd number.
I don't like it.
Yeah, but like,
I just don't like
yeah.
it.
So like the MSL is gonna have like a random week. I think Amanda plays like Alexander, which no offense to Alexander, but like looking at when we're talking to Coach Somm the other day on the Coach's Call-In show, and I'm just looking through their schedule. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like they're they end up getting a win in week 3, and I'm like, that might have been their only win through 6 weeks because they're probably gonna beat Alexander, but it's like, man, some of these conferences are just so loaded. But speaking of that, with conference play beginning a lot, how do you look at each team's non-conference? When you're considering how a team will do when conference play begins. I know we talked about, um, you know, the different level of conferences. We'll talk about Circleville here in a few minutes, where they've started off 3-0 a couple different times and not finished over 500 in quite some time. But how does that affect how you look at how a team's going to be in conference play? Um, you know, if a team starts 2-1 and hasn't for years. I'll use Southeastern as an example. Southeastern hasn't won 2 games since COVID. Since before COVID, they hadn't won 2 games in a season. Start off 2-1. Probably would have started 3-0 if not for a late cancellation last week.
Yeah.
But they played a Notre Dame team pretty tough. It's 3-0. So how do you look at those schools whenever you're breaking down, or as we're doing the pick 'em now, which I've done awful the last couple of weeks. I've done terrible on it. And like I always used to like run my mouth because I always just dominated it. And it's been a rough start. So how do you look at those teams, or do you consider maybe tough losses when you're looking at that as
It,
well?
it listen, it does mess with your mind a little bit because you have a tendency to see the records and who beat who and all that. I compare it sometimes when you're doing the March Madness, the upsets, they don't surprise you. A lot of times it's just you mentally can't get past the 13 over the
Mhm.
4, the 12 over the 5. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? It's the same way here. You see a team start 0-3, now all of a sudden they're playing a 2-1 team, and mentally you can
Yeah.
stop to think about it a second. Obviously, scheduling, you and I've talked about this in detail, is really, really important. So many times you switch schedules, you'd switch records.
Mhm.
And but there's still something to be said for confidence. So you take Southeastern going into like who they play here, and we play Adena to start.
Yep, Adena.
That's an intriguing matchup.
Yep.
Why? Because Southeastern is confident.
Mhm.
They felt the joy of winning. Yeah, they've gone out. They haven't been out playing over their head and getting hammered
Mhm.
by 3 schools to where you come in and you're hurt and who knows who's healthy enough to play. So there's 2 parts of that schedule that go. One, it's your confidence going up or down, but at the same time, oftentimes your injury report starts to
Yes.
increase because you've played in football. When you play a higher level opponent, oftentimes the physicality goes up, and therefore the increase of injury
Mhm.
can go up. So those are situations, and in a high school level, it's weird because you don't always get an official
Mhm.
injury report or whatever. But as we watch a lot of games, read up on a lot of games, man, there are some teams that really did get banged up here in week 3. That's going to impact week 4 and really weeks to come.
Right, and, sometimes those teams will play schedules maybe over their head as well, but that was something, and I think, and, I'll bring up Amanda Clear Creek again, and I think with how we picked, because I think we all picked St. Trace to beat Amanda, and Amanda just kinda dominated the game, but their first 2 weeks were incredibly tough
Yeah.
games, and they were very competitive in it. Now, Zane Trace, they kinda bullied their way through 2 teams that are normally better than what they are, um, in Logan Element and Waverly, but they hadn't had to really play one of those really tight games. So where Amanda has played 2.5 tight games, how does that benefit them moving on into the league play where, and I'll throw out Uniota. Uniota has had 3 just dominating wins.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen in we'll say even this week? Let's If Huntington jumps out 14 nothing on them, are they gonna tighten up because they haven't had to play those close games yet?
I do think there's something to be said for battle tested, and I think a lot of it, later in the year too, that it's that rest versus rust. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's one of those where it's a long season with the increased playoffs now. High school bodies aren't always made to play 12, 13 weeks.
Mhm.
So you could argue that coaches who are able to get some of these kids out at halftime, third
Mhm.
quarter, that's going to pay off in the long run because, again, your body only has so much. We talked
Mhm.
durability earlier with Cartae Ligon. Um, yeah, I mean, there's truth in everything you're saying there. I think as you go in terms of being battle tested, being in tight games, but the confidence of winning. But a lot of times too, John, it's teams that they get into the conference and all of a sudden they're not playing the same level of opponent. Not
Mhm.
necessarily that they play bad opponents, but it might be that they're a little bit of a bigger school, and then as they get into conference play they're like right now, if you're in the mid-state league, you're getting ready to go into some really high level football. And that's not to say that the SBC or the SOC or all these teams, they don't have teams that can compete at the top. My point is week in, week out, when you're playing a division 3, 4 type of football team, it's just a different size and
Mhm.
athleticism rather than going into a league where maybe you're a division 3, 4 school playing a bunch of D5s and D6s. That's a whole different ball game. I
Mhm.
mean, it is. And that can impact a lot of what you're talking about from a physicality standpoint.
Yeah, because we kind of mentioned it going into week one as well. Like you saw a lot of fumbles early in those games because the physicality is different than what you're going to see
Yeah.
in practice in the preseason. Because some teams not doing a lot of hitting early on because some teams you can't because either A, you don't have the numbers, or B, you got to keep those like 4 or 5 guys healthy that are going to handle the
Yeah.
ball. And ultimately, I think that can benefit you to keep those guys healthy, but at the same time, sometimes you just gotta get hit, and some people don't see
That's a
it
fair
until later
point.
on.
Yeah.
Um, but really, I think it is interesting to look at who each team plays. Were they in tight games? Where one of the teams we're gonna talk about, West has played 3 I know this ended up being a 15-point game that we're gonna talk about, but it wasn't a
That's
15 point,
misleading.
yeah.
Yeah.
But their 3 games, very tight games. So, when they go play Chillicothe in week 4, they're gonna be used to those tight games where Chillicothe hasn't really played a tight game. They had, week 1 was somewhat tight with Bloom, but they win by 19 last week. They lose big to London, who's gonna beat everybody
Yeah.
big for a long time. But, ultimately, West, if it gets to be a tight game, last year it was a tight
It
game,
was 1 point game.
yeah, and I think ultimately made the difference for them down the stretch was they knew how to handle themselves in that tight game. But moving on to that, that was our live stream game of the week. That's a game you gotta check out because it was wild.
Huh.
Hillsboro ends up winning 49-34. Back and forth, wild swings. Hillsboro jumps out 14-0. Then it gets to 21-7. Then they just stopped scoring for a while, and West scores 27 at the time were unanswered. They were not unanswered by the end of it. It was consecutive points. They scored 27 consecutive points, go up 34-21, and then kind of the bad part of sports happens a little bit of a melee a little bit, but everything gets, resettled down. And Hillsborough goes on a crazy run to end the game, 28-0 to end the game with the 49-34 win. Uh, those swings you don't see a lot in football. Like, you might see 2, sometimes 3 scores, but you don't see both teams doing it back and forth. Uh, what can you say about that game where you got to be there in person, where I'm just watching it on the stream?
Well, it was phenomenal, and again, amazing atmosphere. Even sets a stage that's appropriate for such a great game.
Mhm,
And early on, it was just all Hillsborough. They come out and they special team standpoint. The captain returns a punt, and even on the extra point, that was the snap was low. The quarterback dumps the holder. He makes a play. It's a 2-point conversion. Then captain comes back, I believe, and adds another run. So, like you said, 14-0, and you're thinking, dang, are they gonna blow them out of here? And then, you know, Portsmouth West, John, comes out after 2 weeks of film of pretty much keeping the ball on the ground, and they just completely turned Brody Hall loose. And
mhm,
I think I unofficially had him throwing the ball like 44 times on the night. I mean, he probably ran for 85, 90 yards as
mhm,
well. He's just a really, really good player. And he brings them back and they really got it going. And what's ironic if I fast forward ahead, because you did a good job of kind of
Mhm.
saying how the scoring went back and forth. Let's go to the 42-34. And the play that is sometimes overlooked because of what happened next was Hall makes an unbelievable effort and gets in the end
Mhm.
zone. We think we're a 2-point conversion away from a tie game with maybe, what, 2 minutes to go, and they call it back. So they come back. So then on that 4th down play, I thought Hall did everything he could. I really do.
Mhm.
I think Hoxel makes a phenomenal play, and then athletically not only makes the play, he then turns into the running back who
Mhm.
rushed for over like 142 yards and 2 scoops anyway, on top of the pick six.
Mhm.
But the play, what happened was when they had come out, they had been going to Atkins. Um, or Bishop, and I was watching where they were lined up and trying to figure out, were they going to bring pressure? What were they going to do? Well, a lot of the options was to Hall's right. So as he started to leave the pocket to the left, he didn't have as many options out there to throw to. Keep in
Mhm.
mind it's 4th and goal. So it was one of those where if he takes off running, he's got a chance to probably get down inside the 10. Obviously, that's not good
Mhm.
enough. So he tries to make a play, and then the kid just makes a better play. But make no mistake about it. I know the final score, but that was an incredible game where there's a lot of situational football. That I agree with what you said earlier. It'll go back to um, that'll go a long way the next time
Mhm.
those kids are in those situations for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned Birdie Hall throwing the ball as much as he did. When you think of West, you think of Anthony Bishop running it. You think
Yeah,
of Atkins running it.
sure.
And now, if you had to account for Birdie Hall, we saw him last year in that Chillicothe game. I think he threw it like 3 times, and each one of the throws was like,
Yeah,
"All right, this he's got something
he
here."
was throwing it all over the yard. Yeah,
Yeah, and now that's just gonna make West more dangerous throughout the year. There's gonna be harder to defend them because of what all they could do. And I know Hillsboro is mostly on the ground, but man, that's when you got Dumper at quarterback,
great
Hoxtell,
competitor.
yeah,
Dumper is.
Hoxtell, captain. I know Swackhammer had a nice or had a few nice runs. Yeah, it's just they're a team with a lot of options where that's going to make them very dangerous as well. They've got a really tough one this week with Williamsburg, but this is a Hillsborough team that I think people weren't expecting to be what they've been, but a really nice 3-0 start for Hillsborough.
Williamsburg undefeated as well. I like Hillsburg's Week 5 matchup before they get an FAC play and open with Jackson, Miami
Mm,
Trace. That's a good
super
one.
easy. Yeah.
But I think we should probably also mention Cooper Swope. You and I did a
Mm,
thing on kicking,
yes.
and he was really solid in his extra points, even in a time where Hillsborough kind of lost their composure one time after a score. They backed up a key extra point to 35 yards, and he nailed it. And then the biggest play of the game was when he was able to lift the kickoff all the way down to the 5 yard line.
Mm,
After they scored, let's see, it was 34-21. After they scored, go 34-28 on the ensuing kickoff. That's when the ball comes live down there and they get it. But
mm,
again, the ability to be able to kick it down there, like
mm.
it's just his he's got a nice leg. I was watching that young man warm up, and he was tossing it in from 50.
It's it's such an advantage, which that might be our running theme on football throughout
Sure.
all of our shows because I know we talked about it a lot on Friday night too. Is the ability to kick and to be able to pin a team deep, or even maybe you don't pin them deep, maybe you just directional kick it, and that can be a big benefit as well. But if you know the other team's going to start at the 20,
Yeah.
that's a big benefit, and then you don't. Even though most teams are putting very good athletes on special teams, you don't have to worry about those guys getting hit an extra time
Right.
if you're just putting it deep. And, that's a big advantage for Hillsborough and a lot of other teams in the area as well is, to limit what the other team can even do in special teams. Because also, a team like a West is probably gonna have some really good athletes
Yeah.
returning the ball, and that doesn't even give them a chance
Yeah.
to do it.
Two more stats before we get off that game. I thought Carson did a great job the other night calling the
Mhm,
game with me there, and he was, I believe he said that Hillsboro's 3-0 for the first time since 18,
mhm,
and a great opportunity to get off to at least a 4-1 start, if not
yeah,
a 5-0 start. On the other side of that, oh John, think about this with me. depending on how this week goes, Waverly West, I think, play week 5.
Mm.
You could have 1-4 or
That's
one and
really
three, 0-4.
yeah.
And I'm telling you, those 2 teams we've called are not that bad. I
Mm-mm.
mean, I know you are what your record says you are, and, a lot of that's scheduling.
Yeah.
But that shows you that winning's hard.
Mhm.
Like I used to tell kids all the time when I coach, if winning was easy, everybody'd do it. Winning's hard, and that right there, if West and Waverly do meet each other in week 5 at 1-3, 0-4, that's a great illustration
Yeah.
of that.
So you mentioned Waverly. Waverly has played 3-0, 2-1, 3-0, and will play 3-0 this
Yep.
week. So, I mean,
Yep.
it is
They're
not
not a bad team. Like
no.
that was a 14-14 game with Miami Trace, and then Mr. Baker decided that he wasn't having any of it.
Yeah, but you mentioned Hillsboro, they should get that Ponitz Tech game in week 5, as you said. That's some good scheduling because 'cause you're probably gonna get some I mean, that's a Division 3 opponent. You're gonna get at least some points from that. Maybe you're not gonna get a lot of the second level points, but it's gonna give you a chance to get healthy as well. So, I like that matchup for them because, man, up you mentioned Jackson, Miami Trace, then you got Chillicothe, and that's just not a, favorable start for league play, but at the same time, this is a Hillsboro team that has played very well so far this year and off to a 3-0 start, and as you mentioned, at the very least, more than likely gonna be 4-0. That Wheelersburg team is going to be very tough, uh, coming up this week, especially on the road. But, Fantastic 50's only got them as a 4-point underdog on the road, which means that's pretty much a pick 'em because usually you give them about 3 points
Yeah,
in that. So,
yeah.
that's a 3-0 team, but hey, you never know. It's gonna be a big one. But, we've got a new segment this week, presented by Perfection One. You can find Perfection One anywhere or not anywhere. Okay, let's restart that part because man, I'm not good at this ad read. Dewey was great at this stuff, but new segment this week. It's called our Perfection One Collision of the Game. Remember, you can find Perfection One in Pickaway, Pike, and Ross counties, uh, in Circleville, Chillicothe, and Waverly. They're highly recommended. That's a great slogan as well. But this week's Perfection One collision of the game goes to Malachi Aber of Hillsboro with a big time hit for his second sack of the season in the Indians 49-34 win over West. I know we're going to clip it here in a second and not going to be on here, but you're going to see it on our other socials and whatnot. But man, it's a big time hit. Carson sent it to me after the game, and it's a really high level play by Aber to be able to make that play. And plays like that are one of the reasons why they're able to get to Hall later in the game as well.
I agree with that, and it was a really physical game the other night. You probably had 4 or 5 different types of plays in that game that could have been
Mhm.
in contention for this type of thing, and but no, I think that's a great selection, and I agree that the some of those hits throughout the game, it's kinda like chopping down the tree.
Mhm.
I have a hard time believing that doesn't wear on some kids, and as you get into the 4th quarter, maybe
Mhm.
maybe just a little bit, um, empty in the tank.
Mhm. Yeah, and it just makes things a little bit harder, and that's one of the reasons why, we wanted to be able to spotlight that for our Perfection One collision of the week, as we'll be looking to do that each week with something from one of our live streams, or if we get a big hit sent to us, because I know the game I was at, I saw a couple of big ones, and you just kind of never know in those matchups. So, another game that we wanted to highlight, Derek was at. It was Circleville 42-35 over Westfall in overtime. Just an
Yeah.
outstanding game. And we talked about it a little bit off the air. Westfall playing a little shorthanded in that as a quarterback goes out early. They had to move Quinn Eberly to play the quarterback position after he had 70
He
yards
was
receiving.
terrific. I actually got a
Yeah,
chance to watch that game
yeah.
this weekend. I appreciate coaches giving me freedom to watch some film. He was terrific to be thrown to that situation against that level of opponent.
Yeah, so he ended up with 247 yards of or total offense. I think he was just 1 for 2 passing, but he was able to get them in the right spots. He had 2 touchdowns. Eli Wright playing, where his brother didn't play. Joey Wright's been
Yeah.
outstanding for them. Eli Wright had 161 yards rushing, so they really instead of being kinda dual threat when Potts is in, um where they can throw and run. This was a little more run heavy, but they were able to get 35 points and force overtime with a Circleville team that's off to another really good start. But ultimately, Eli Wright's 3 touchdowns, they end up losing in overtime. A really nice play by Liston at the end of the game to make it to where Waverly wasn't able to throw on their 4th down,
Yeah.
and ultimately the Tigers get the win. For Westfall, they're 2-1. They're looking to get to 3-1 for the first time since 2020, which was a season they finished 3-3. I mean, it's the COVID year. And it's just kind of whatever in that.
Yeah.
But they play at Paint Valley on Friday. That was one of the games we talked about early as a possible streaming game because it looks like it's going to be, especially in the preseason, looked like it was going to be a really competitive game. Mustangs have not beaten Paint Valley at all since 2017, which was
Wow.
also on the road. But that would be a big time win for them because, like I said, they haven't been 3-1 since 2020. A couple of years ago, Coach Stepp had them 6-5. They got in the playoffs. Um, but before that, the last winning season for Westfall was 2012, which is we've talked about that. If you know the SVC, hearing that
Yeah.
Westfall has only had one winning season since 2012, that's
Yeah.
kind of crazy.
Well, you grew up in the 80s and 90s, and it's just that does sound crazy. Now in the modern day, it's something they're trying to fight back to. But the as you were talking there, I guess my mind went two different directions. One, Circleville, talk about finding ways to win.
Hmm.
They executed well in that regulation, then missed the field goal.
Yeah.
But I mean, they executed well to get to that point. Then they come in overtime, and it's the third week in a row where they win a close game. And then on the Westfall side, you're right. It's it's impressive. Now, as they go into league play, they're a team that I was kind of thinking of earlier when we talked about, where's their health going to be?
Hmm.
On the Paint Valley side, they played a really good first half against McLean. They get a couple upperclassmen back, which I thought special teams and defense showed up big time. But then all of a sudden they maybe lose another one. We'll wait and see on the reports there. So again, it's the up and down physicality and these smaller rosters.
Hmm.
There's no next man up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so that'll be a big factor into week 4 in a lot of games, but certainly in that Westfall Paint Valley matchup.
Yeah, and then going back to Circleville, because we'll,
Yeah,
we'll talk a little bit more about the winners in this one. Hudson Phelan, the quarterback with 3 touchdowns on the ground.
yeah.
Ray Azel, hopefully said that name right. I think we just had something fall in this. Yeah, I see we had something fall in the studio. So no harm though, but just seeing the light shake. But
Yeah.
Ray Azel, he had an 82-yard punt return for a touchdown. Also had a 29-yard touchdown run. You can see that punt return on our socials. And Derek said, he put him in the spin cycle. Saw one spin move, and I was like, "Oh, there's another one." And he hit another spin, and it wasn't, without seeing it like from over the top. You can't say it was like the Braxton Miller, but it was tight, and he just kept moving. It was a beautiful spin move from Azell down the sideline. He had a couple of touchdowns for them, big ones as well. Cole Nungester had another touchdown. I mentioned Liston with a big defensive play late. Circleville 3-0 for the third time in 4 seasons. So, I mean, they've gotten to good starts before, but the Tigers have not finished over 500 since 2015. They are at Logan Elm, backyard brawl in week 4, have not beaten Logan Elm since 2019.
Wow.
What, when looking at Circleville, without us seeing them in person, you saw them on film, but Coach Jay Sherritt won a couple state championships, comes in, Circleville grad comes in. What do you see that the head coach can make that adjustment to where they're going to have a chance to get to 500 and possibly better? Because as you mentioned, they played 3 close games so far. A 1 point win over Warren, an 8 point win over Washington Courthouse, and then an overtime win over Westfall.
John, I think you talk to football coaches, and you and I talk to a lot of them,
Hmm.
right? You talk to football coaches at any level, and they'll talk about it really comes down to 3, 4, maybe 5 plays a game.
Hmm.
Well, I think a lot of those plays are impacted by culture. So I
Hmm.
think what happens with coaching is you come in, sometimes your talent level just runs out, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes, so I'm not saying like when it goes the wrong way, I'm not saying that's on the coach either. I'm just
Mhm.
saying that like what happens is when you have great culture, those 3, 4, 5 plays have a tendency to find their way tilted in your advantage a
Mhm.
little bit more. Does that make sense? Like
Yes.
you have a tendency to just make it a play. Like to use an NFL reference, like with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson last night, and the way they went back and forth at each other. I don't even care about the Ravens and Bills or who wins. I was just a sports fan that was sitting there just enjoying it,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, "Oh, if they punt the ball back to him, they're gonna lose." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of those so it's one of those where you just sense that, like, culture can put you in position to find ways to win, and then what happens is you believe you're gonna win. You may
Mhm.
not every time,
Mhm.
but you do start to believe in it a little bit more, and you feel like, "Okay, in the most pressurized moments, we understand what we're supposed to do. We've been drilled on what to
Mhm.
do. We've been really schooled on what to do, and we're gonna execute." And I think that's probably with Circleville, the thing that jumps out at me the most is this is a team that could just as easily be 0-3. Well, you know why they're not? Is because they made those 2 or 3 plays per Friday night, and they put them on the right side of the scoreboard.
Mhm. Yeah, and right now, per Fantastic 50, they're projected at between 5 and 6 wins, which probably put them on the bubble with the new playoffs, which we'll talk about that, here in the next couple weeks when the playoffs are getting closer, like, our thoughts on the playoff adjustment.
Mm,
I think it is,
yeah,
but we'll talk about it a little bit more, but, yeah, ultimately, making those little plays here and there, as you
yeah,
said, has flipped them from possibly being 0-3 to 3-0. So that's
I agree.
a big time shift for Circleville and their program. Now, we have several teams in our area that have gotten off to nice starts. The SOC one has kind of it's wild because it's completely flipped between the four. Their league is 12-6 out of the 6 teams. Well, 2 teams are 0-6 combined. So you've got 4 teams that are out to 3-0 starts and 1 which hasn't done it for a long time, Symmes Valley. They're 3-0. They went 3-6 a season ago. Coming into the season, they've only won 7 games over their last 3, and they've already got off to a 3-0 start, which is great. Things do get more difficult this week. They play South Point 2-1, who played Eastern Pike really tight. They're the only ones that have slowed Eastern Pike down at all because Eastern Pike's put up uh, well over 40 points this past week, and then 40 with a last second win over Huntington in week 2. Coach Ben Ferguson's team looks like they're trying to prove that they're back. This is a big kind of proving week game. They're at home. I would say this is probably going to be a big one with a big atmosphere. But one of the things that stands out to me the most, they are very sophomore heavy. You got a sophomore quarterback, Bronx Carpenter, which if you watched our basketball streams, you heard his name a lot. If you watched our baseball stream where we had Symmes Valley, you heard his name a lot. Like it's a 3 sport guy whose dad coaches them in basketball. Man, he can really play. He's thrown for 882 yards in the first 3 weeks, 11 touchdowns. He had a huge game and a 56-42 win over Meg, so that was one where you had to do it. But just he's been outstanding. Asher Maynard at running back, Jackson Fields at wide receiver, all sophomores. So at a small school, 48.6 points per game.
Yeah.
Now, the teams they beat are combined 0-9. Throw that out the window. This is a young team at a small school. How much fun can that be where you're building yeah, I know you work at a small school, and you've had some of those teams where
Yeah.
you've rebuilt through the youth. How much fun is that in that community when you've got such an exciting young core like that?
Well, I think it was real fair the way you put both sides out there. I know the 0-9 argument, okay, but
Mhm.
beyond that, you're talking about a team that's what, plus 77 if my math is
Yeah.
right, and they've scored over 50 a couple times. You're worried about their defense after the first 2 weeks. Well, then what do they do in week 3? They pitch a shutout. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So like you're seeing some of these up and down things. And I understand 0-9, but they're also playing some bigger enrollments. You know, a
Mhm.
River Valley, a Pomeroy Megs, you know, some of those
Well,
teams, and
and even Chesapeake is a bigger school as
not
well.
much
Yeah.
bigger, much
Yeah.
bigger. So there's a lot of positives there, but I think your final point is probably the point that I would ride the most is the excitement. Remember what we talked about earlier, the excitement of what it brings to a community. You know, these kids come up through in a small community. Most of the time, you know, they know each other well. They played together growing up. The families know each other, and it's something that you can rally behind because your football Friday night is a huge atmosphere piece for your entire athletic program. I've said it before. It's your boosters, it's your band, it's your cheerleaders, it's everything, right?
Mhm.
It's your event. And if you have a group that's easy to root for, if you have a group of young men that are class acts that are really good and they play hard, man, it makes for a really special thing for your
Mhm.
school. And it sounds like Symmes Valley's in a position to have that right now. And you know, maybe the time's now. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
you hear sophomores and you think over the next 2 years it's going to be really good. Well, why not be really good right now?
Right.
And they're coming up on a week 4 game that I agree is really important because if you look at their schedule, yeah, I'm sure their coach doesn't want me saying this on here, but if you look at their schedule, I mean, if they stay healthy, you would think they're almost going to accidentally win 7 or 8. You know,
Mhm.
this becomes a really big week 4. Do you agree with that? Because if
Oh.
they get this one, now all of a sudden a perfect season's on the table.
Mhm. Yeah, and you win this one at home. You got Fairfield Christian, who's gonna be at least solid in week 5, but then Green, who's pretty down right now in week 6, and then you'd go on the road to Beaver,
Yeah,
which
which is
would
the big
be
one.
yeah, which would be the big one. Right now, they're projected to be a 5-point underdog, but one of the things that Eastern has struggled with is in the secondary.
Yeah.
And that's something that ultimately, just looking at the numbers between, Fields has been very important. Didn't get his week 3 totals, so I didn't want to throw out totals for him yet, but I know he had a big week 2 catching the ball from Carpenter, and Carpenter averaging nearly 300 yards a game. That's going to be something that maybe they can take advantage of Eastern, but I mean, that's well down the road. But you do finish with Notre Dame, who's 3-0, South Gaia 3-0 also. Those teams will be tough late in the season as well. So if you get a win this week, I would say at worst you're at 7 wins throughout the year or the rest of the year, or 7 total, which would get you a home game in the playoffs, and that's
Yeah.
that's huge because Sim Valley is not easy to get to. So if you got
So that doesn't they don't fit my road argument
Right.
anymore.
Yeah. So if they get a way to get there a little bit easier, maybe it's not as easy of a trip. But if like Hannibal River's got to go there, have fun with that. Like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
river ain't easy to get to anyway. But even Trimble, like those
yeah,
schools, like having to make that trip to Willowwood in
yeah,
Lawrence County to get there, it's not easy.
yeah,
So there you've got a big advantage. You're gonna have really good crowd support anyway. And you've got some young studs as well.
yeah,
They're gonna be a team to watch for sure. Really interested in that game this week because South Point hasn't been super consistent the last couple of years, but as we mentioned, they slowed down that Eastern high flying offense. So we'll see if they can do it to this high flying offense with Sims Valley
yeah,
as well. Although the high flying Eagles are different than the high flying Vikings, but uh, yeah, ultimately, defensively for South Point, they've given up 13-0-6. So I
and
mean, that's
something's gonna give there.
yeah. So that's an interesting game that we'll definitely
Yeah,
keep
it
an eye
is.
on for sure this week. So you know, one of the things we've talked about, and this will kind of lead into our next segment, which we're gonna talk soccer. So sorry for last week because I know Dewey's not the biggest soccer guy, and you guys mostly cover volleyball
Yeah,
when it's not football time. So I cover a lot of soccer. So we'll get to soccer here in a minute. But milestones, we see them every week. We put out. I know this week, just today. So we're taping on a Monday. We put out a couple of milestones out on our main Facebook page and our socials, which would be Cartae Ligon, which we talked about,
yeah,
420 yards rushing. Katie Burns, that's going to be a fun one to talk about,
yeah,
with 1,000 kills for Adena volleyball. what do you look at when you're taking into account the value of each milestone? Because some schools, like we were down at Gallia the other day, turned around and looked, they had like 6,000 point scores. You have to look at the coaching in that way because some schools have 17, 18,000 point scores. Bigger schools, sometimes it's harder to get on the
Yeah.
varsity floor. Why, when you look at how the programs are built, could that make it more difficult to reach some of these milestones in certain programs as well?
First thing I would throw out there is there's nothing wrong with honoring kids. You know what I mean?
No.
So if kids reach a number, throw it out there. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? We want to hear it. They deserve to hear it. You know, they work hard. Whatever that number is, there's nothing wrong with doing that.
Mm,
Understand when we talk about this, it's just fun sports talk to try to put into perspective what they mean.
mhm,
So yes, you're right. I think what we're saying when we do this is we're almost defending the players who maybe fall short of some milestones
mhm,
for reasons that are still really good for the
mhm,
team, or that means they're still a really good player.
mhm,
And I think you talked about it there. I've talked about it before on overtime here, where the great programs, there's only one ball to go around
mhm,
sometimes. You know what I mean? So like you're only getting so many rushes, you're only getting so many swings on the volleyball court. You're only, you may be beating people in straight sets. Again, you may be waiting your turn. You may be
mhm,
playing behind someone who's really, really good. So you may be an incredible player, but you may not start to your junior year. So all of those different things factor in, and I think what happens is the rules of the sport are really important too. We talked a lot about the 1,000 point score in basketball, and over the year now you play 22 games, and it's not just the three-point line, it's almost the acceptance of the three-point line.
mhm,
It's the Steph Curry day and age, right? Where I played with some incredible shooters with a three-point line, but it was kinda you started shooting 7, 8 threes in a game, you're a little bit of a gun, or your
right,
coach had a little loose ship or whatever. Nowadays, you got a great shooter, they're just getting loose at 8, you know what I
yeah,
mean? You might want them to shoot 12, 13, 14.
mhm,
Same way in volleyball. There's no way you can talk about volleyball history and not separate pre and post rally
mhm,
scoring. That's just my opinion. Maybe you disagree, and that's fine. But like it's two different things. There's more opportunity in the rally scoring. You're playing more points. Again, some of these matches you're going deeper. Do you play a lot of 4 and 5 set matches? Does your team make a tournament run? You know what
mhm,
I mean? Like so, a lot of times in whatever sport we're talking, do you get an extra, in football, do you get an extra 2 or 3 games a year?
mhm,
In volleyball or basketball, do you get an extra 5, 6, 7 games a year? Well, you do that over the course of 2 or 3 of your 4 years. That's almost like getting a whole nother
yeah,
season. So all of those factors go in, but I think there's different ones to go. Like, so I'll provide a volleyball situation here. To me, 1,000 kills is phenomenal. Okay,
mhm,
you start getting up over 800 kills or whatever, you've had a legitimate career
mhm,
as a hitter. On the setting side, I probably would go closer to the 1,500, 2,000.
mhm,
However, if you are in a 6-2 where you're only setting half the time, obviously you got to take that into consideration.
mhm,
Maybe you're also a hitter, so maybe it's the balance of some of these kids. All of a sudden, we'll highlight some kids that maybe get 1,000 this, 1,000 that.
mhm,
So yeah, like when you get into setting, 2,000 is probably a closer number for me. 2,500, you're getting into some of the elite, like we watched two of them Thursday night,
mhm,
really good. Um, but at the same time, you get into a situation with Diggs, 1,500, really good. 2,000, you're starting to get to 2,000, you're starting to get into your lane and Lytle for our
mhm,
for our
yeah.
local people that remember her. You're starting to get into that territory, or Carol there at Adena. So yeah, there's it's an endless conversation that I think is fun. At the end of the day, I think it's just awesome that we recognize kids. And
Mhm.
again, if they have a number, throw it out there because it's worth highlighting.
Oh, 100%, and it's because of the different era. I kinda wish that on the OHSAA where they have the records, I wish they had it as kind of a pre and post for volleyball, especially
Yeah,
because
they think yeah,
it is such a different game. Because
yeah,
also, those are 3 sets instead of 5, so
yeah,
now I know you could play pretty similar amount of because of the side outs and whatnot,
yeah.
but, yeah,
You
sometimes
could,
yeah.
but I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's as consistent.
No, I completely agree on that, and it's there's a variety of, you know, ways to look at different records. You can look at some of them can be, and also on some of these, the tightness of how a coach scores it. Because I
No,
like,
you're right.
yeah, because there's people that are very tight on a basketball assist or soccer assists, things like that. Those can be very
Right.
difficult as
You're right.
you're a long time record holder for assists. You know, how how difficult is that to add some of those? Now, I know you'd always throw out like some of the teammates you had and whatnot, but
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
that helped a little bit.
yeah. So um how can that factor in? Like, where if a coach is very by the book on keeping some of these?
Listen, it all of it's a factor in terms of the way things are judged and the way things go. A lot of times, like when we're talking about, kills and aces and things like that in terms of how it's scored. Um, you know, the assist that you're talking about is a great tackles. There's one,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like you get your solo tackle, you get your assist tackle. Well, all of a sudden, everybody who's in the shot of the film at the whistle is getting an assist. You know what I mean? So there's no question. That all of those things, especially at the high school level, are factors in what go into that. And some of the better programs, they're keeping a more detailed stat. There's other programs that haven't reached a time where they don't do their film work or whatever. It's hard to even get history
Mhm.
because you don't even have stat sheet outside of just a couple basic
Mm.
statistical categories.
Okay, and then I got one more before we go on
Okay.
to it. What about coaching turnover? Because
Yes.
we were both close with it one baseball program where no one has the stats for a long time
Yeah.
on one of them because they just didn't take. Like, they had left their stats somewhere, and then someone didn't know what they were and just like, "Ah, just got rid of them." Like,
Yeah.
you don't like, how important is that for, Josh Jones, did a great job with,
Unbelievable
yeah, with
job. Yeah.
Ross County basketball, um, Ross County basketball records, and thankfully, we were both able to get a copy of the record books, and but that how much does that factor into how detailed some of these places are as well. Now, current milestones, you're going to get because you're a coach anyway. But I know there's some schools that if a kid transfers and if all the stats aren't updated, sometimes it could be harder to get to it because I know
Yeah.
that's a situation
Yeah.
that's happened before. And maybe if it's a bad break, maybe that makes it a little more difficult as well.
It is, it's tough, and you're right, and once you don't have them, you don't have them. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? There's no going back and getting them unless someone just does some incredible research, and then even then, you don't know how accurate it is. So that's a great point. The more modern day technology is
Mhm.
probably gonna offer a little bit more archiving of those
Mhm.
stats. That's a great point that I didn't have in my notes. That's really good.
And I okay. I'd pay $15 a month for a certain stat, uh, program in the spring, and we had a really good free one, and then all of a sudden, it's done. We're not updating it anymore. But a lot of people lost years of that because
Years. Yes.
people aren't keeping paper baseball, softball books anymore.
Right.
And then when your big stat program just says, we're not
Yeah.
everything pre-2021, if you aren't on this stat program, you don't have anymore.
Yeah.
It's like
It's tough.
that's the problem with some of this technology stuff, and I know we talked about with SEC Sports Zone. I tried to archive as much as possible. I know you did as well,
Yeah.
and it's just because some of these schools have just gone through a variety of coaches and maybe don't have it. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to look at these milestones, and that's why when you said, "Let's celebrate the kids
Yeah.
anytime," you
Yeah.
need to do it because you don't know when stuff's gonna get lost,
Yeah.
and with how much technology is out there now, it should
Shouldn't.
never happen,
I agree.
but when a program just shuts down or sells to somebody and shuts down, or who knows what's gonna happen with Max Preps? At some point, it's gonna be
Yeah.
behind a paywall, and that's gonna be going back to, like, 2007 for some places, because some
Wow.
places just do it on there.
Yeah.
Like, who knows what's gonna happen with some of this stuff, so make sure you keep a
Yeah.
record of it somewhere because it is gonna be, very valuable, so that's why I'm glad that we are able to, highlight some of these. Now, uh, kinda moving on to soccer.
Well, on the
Yeah.
soccer side, there's a lot of things I'll throw at you, and I'll just let you kind of go as you want. I know coming off last week, we didn't really get a chance to talk much
Mhm.
soccer. The number one thing, John, that jumps out at me was, I guess it goes right with breaking records and
Mhm.
milestones and things like that. The Wheelersburg soccer program was in the headlines this week.
Yeah, it's a program that they're one of the ones that 823, we talked about it earlier, has made me very happy because I've got to see them much more over the last few years. It started with Aaron Jolly, then it moved on to Max Hagans, and then now Nick Sylvia. And the kind of cool part about it is they've all played with each other at some point. So, like, I think when Jolly was a senior, Hagans was a freshman. And then when Hagans junior and senior year, Sylvia was a freshman and sophomore. And they've each taken turns breaking each other's scoring records. So Nick Sylvia becomes Wheelersburg's career scoring leader, a minimum of 132. I don't know if he's played more since then, or if they just said, "Hey, 132 is the number," and then we're gonna find out throughout. Coach Johnny Stepp does a great job with them,
Yeah.
and they're somebody who they were, under a long-term coach, and they've done a great job with record keeping. Now, if you know anything about Wheelersburg sports, you know they are very good at
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
everything all the time.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're gonna be good makes it to where, people wanna keep their records a little bit more, and by doing that, it makes it to where you can celebrate these things. So, as I said, Aaron Jolly, when they got to the Final Four a few years ago, was their all-time leading goal scorer. Then Max Hagans passed him, and now Nick Sylvia passed Max Hagans. He's now 13th in OHSA history.
Wow.
There's only 2 players on the boys' side. I didn't look up the girls' side because I didn't even think to do it. On the boys' side, which we'll talk about that more later, because I'm sure we're gonna have somebody getting close to getting into that. On the boys' side, there's only 2 players in the Southeast that have more career goals than Nick Sylvia. One he's going to pass fairly soon, which is Union's Lucas Haynes, 138 goals. He got to a Final Four, and also Waverly's Luke Papero, 156.
Wow.
He did not get to a Final Four, but he got a scholarship to Ohio State. I know he ended up at, I believe, Shawnee, but yeah, just Sylvia is an incredible player, super special player. And man, and I don't know if it started before Hagen's, but man, those interviews doing with those kids, Hagen's and Sylvia, are some of the more, like, mindful interviews, like, very intelligent
Yeah.
kids. Um, you know, you can tell very spiritual kids as well when they do their interviews. I thought Max, you know, yeah, I almost said Max Montgomery. Miles Montgomery, was another kid that was always that way. Um,
Yeah.
you know and we're not gonna get too far into it because,
Yeah.
that's not something we need to get into right now, but it's cool to see kids that,
Yeah.
have that,
Absolutely.
to them, and, Sylvia, great kid. I look forward Thursday, I'll actually get down and watch them, and South Webster should be a great game. Um, probably could have highlighted that game a little bit more. Um, 2 outstanding programs. Look forward to getting that. We may get down to see them in person later in the year, but
Now, speaking
yeah.
of Wheeler, I know obviously they're scoring goals at a record base. I know you'd also told me that in goal they've been pretty
Mhm,
stingy and they're working on quite a run there, and that makes
mhm.
sense of why the boys and girls programs are off to
Yeah.
such a good start.
And Breyden Byrd broke a 25-year-old school record for career shutouts, 37 and counting. Yeah,
Shutouts. Wow.
37 shutouts, and last year he missed about half the year. He
Yeah.
had a broken thumb, missed about half the year. Now he's one that maybe has benefited from those deep tournament runs, but I don't think he played a whole lot as a freshman. So he's one where they've had great defense for the last 4 years, but they a lot of those guys graduated. Now they're dealing, dealing with some new players here and there. They've outscored teams 25-3 so far. Gave up 2 against Medford, 1 against Unio, 2 really good teams and programs as well. But Breyden Byrd is an outstanding goalie, very athletic, very dynamic in goal, very good leader back there as well. And he's a big reason why they're off to a 3-0-1 start on the year. He's been just
Hard to
outstanding.
lose if you don't give up a
Yeah,
goal.
and I remember when I was coaching a few years ago, I don't know if the kid realized it, but we lost. We had one of the all-time great goal scorers in Tyler Bryant his junior year
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
gets hurt, and we just completely stopped scoring goals. But we're playing Alexander. We went in averaging like 7 goals a game, and we tie him 0-0. And one of the kids comes off. I was like, "Can't win if you don't score." And like in the back of my head, I was like 21 at the time. I'm like, we also don't have our guy,
Yeah.
but we end up, still having a solid year. But then
Sure.
the next year he scored 48, and that's the
Yeah.
type of things. Sylvia scores like 57 last year, and he's just outstanding. But in the tournament, they end up having a game against Zane Trace where they win 2-0, where the offense wasn't really getting going. Well, they weren't giving up anything
Yeah.
because the defense and the goalie, Brayden Byrd, Nick Sylvia, 2 outstanding players. They've got some more guys down there as well. But man, they're a well coached team, a great program. As I said, they're off to a 3-0-1 start Thursday at South Webster. South Webster 5-0 has outscored their opponents 33-3. So tune in for next week. We'll have a full rundown of that one as well.
No question. Well, so Wheelersburg and boys and girls off to the undefeated
Mhm.
start. The other thing that's impressive is what Alexander's doing this year.
Yes.
I know their volleyball team is off to a great start. They're in first place of the
Mhm.
TVC Ohio. On the soccer field, the boys and girls 7-1. Did I read that
Mhm.
right?
Yep, Alexander boys off to a 7-1-1 start. They had an opening season loss to Gallia Academy. Then they just tied Athens the other day. They went
Hmm.
2-14-2 last year. Now
Wow.
I went and covered them at Unio late in the year.
Now that's not
Yeah.
normal over the
No,
history
it's
down there.
not
They've
not
always been really
normal.
good, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Alexander up until I believe it was maybe the COVID year. It might have been the year of COVID. Might have been the year before. They made it to state. They made it to the Final Four, and they were one of the ones that were one of the best programs in the state to never reach the Final Four because they just constantly
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
getting to the regional semis, regional finals for years. I remember we went down when I was in junior high, when junior high soccer wasn't really a thing. We went down and played them, and then the varsity on the way back beat them 4-3. Jacob Gauss had just an unbelievable game that night. Ended up winning 4-3, and they celebrated the entire way home. Believe it was the first time Unia had ever beat Alexander, and they started the programs at like the same time.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where at the time it made such an impact on me. It was like, man, this team must be really good. Like it's a program that's been outstanding. And that 2-14-2 season last year, I went and covered them in a game, and somebody, from the office, was like, "Why are you going to this game?" Like, they're not very good. I'm like, "It doesn't matter. They're gonna be good." And it was like
Yeah.
it ended up being like a 2-goal game, but through like 60 minutes, it was a tight game, and you didn't it looked like they weren't gonna be down for very long. And they are not down anymore. 7-1-1. Only that season opening loss to Gallia Academy, who's outstanding. Jake Roush leads them with 11 goals. Gabe Feltz, 7 goals, 4 assists. Jace Cooper, 5 goals, 5 assists. They've been outstanding throughout the year. They're definitely a team that we're going to have to keep our eye on throughout the season as well. They are one of those teams in the TVC. They're going to play Athens twice. Those are always just brawls, like just absolutely physical, fast games, just high level games as well. And then you talked about the girls' side. Alexander, they reached a district final last year, 7-1 though on the year. They got a big 1-0 win over Athens on Thursday. Brock was at that game. If you get on sosaohio.com, you can read the
Okay.
article
Yep.
about the game.
Yep.
But, it had a really good post-game interview. Arbor Albano, scored the game winner with 7:55 left in the game. goalkeeper Brooklyn Mets has 7 shutouts in their 8 games so far. Now they did lose 5-1 to Marietta, but, like, that's I think it's almost a 2 division difference between those 2 at this point. In Marietta, if you hear soccer in Marietta, they're, outstanding. They're one of our, like, I think I jokingly said, like, 5 teams in the Southeast District that we don't cover is Marietta, and their soccer is very
Yeah.
next level. So, they're outscoring their opponents 37-5 on the year with those 5 goals coming against Marietta, who hasn't lost to an Ohio team yet this year. Kara Allison, 11 goals, 5 assists. I watched them last year against McLean. They're a very good team, very good program. Albano's a very dynamic scorer for them as well. They've got a big one on Tuesday. So when this comes out, they host Uniota. It's 4-2-1. Just came off a big week last week where they beat Jackson, who's a very good program as well. Um, Uniota tied Athens 1-1. Athens is a team that does not give up much, so a 1-0 game, you might say, whatever. That's one of those, like, people that want to see it more wide open. But if you like good defensive soccer, Alexander and Athens are going to be 2 of the top teams that you're going to see in this area.
Well, that's outstanding. And so we've been to the south, we've been over to the east side of the coverage. Let's come all the way back over to the west. I think that year in, year out, I'm always amazed on the Southern Hills
Hmm.
side. A lot of our boys and girls that are really good at basketball, they seem to generate a lot of it from soccer. The one that jumped out at me was Eastern Brown off to the 8-0 start this year.
Yeah, the Eastern Brown 8-0, and you know they went 7-7-5 last year, so they've already eclipsed that record, outscored opponents 26-6, but that's also coming with 3 of those goals happening in a win over Cincinnati Reading on Saturday, a 5-3 win. Reading, record-wise, isn't gonna knock you out, but they've got Indian Hill,
Oh
Marymount,
yeah, 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 yeah,
Madeira. Madeira's ridiculous. They
yeah.
play them every year, and, like, so you're gonna have losses because you're playing these, um, high level public schools, and then they're playing some private schools that are very good as well.
Sure,
These
sure.
they tied last year, I believe it was 2-2. They tied last year, and they beat Reading this year 5-3. An 8-0 start for Eastern Brown, and that's a league you mentioned with the basketball players. A lot of them don't have football, and if they have football, it's probably a club. Although I Fayetteville is a good soccer program at this point as well. They do have football.
Yeah.
Manchester, I don't think has soccer, but they're off to a 3-0 start in football, which they're a team that throughout the year we may talk about a little bit more because they're going to do some stuff they've never done before. Um, but Eastern Brown, they've been very good so far. Chase Pinkerton in goal, 4 shutouts for them. Hunter Gold with 6 goals on the year. Jace Riggs leads them with 9 goals, 4 assists. Kane Dotson, another player who's outstanding in basketball. You'll see him in soccer as well. They've got a huge one on Wednesday. I'm going to be down there with Raymond taking pictures. Raymond Gleedle, if you see his pictures, you're going to be like, dude, this dude's like a 30-year veteran. Like he's a senior in high school. So anytime you see Raymond Gleedle's pictures, and like Derek takes really good pictures, Brock takes really good pictures, but he'll be like, if we can get Raymond to the game, we're taking Raymond. And like I said, he's a senior in high school. So he's gonna be down there with me. Girls game's up first with Eastern Brown and North Adams, but the big one is the boys game. North Adams 6-1. I saw them against Fairfield last week or a couple weeks ago. They just looked really dynamic, very athletic all over the field. That's going to be a really big one in the shack. So look for my updates on that one on Wednesday night. Looking forward to getting down. I'm not going to guess on where it's at. Like, I think it's Winchester, technically. It says Sardinia still on the OSSCA website. I'm like, I went to Sardinia once. It ain't there. And yeah, I think it's technically Winchester, but really looking forward to getting down there and seeing that should be a really high level soccer match on Wednesday night. The Shack does a great job. The Shack Athletic website is the best
Yeah.
website in the district, and they use that really, I can't remember what it's called exactly, but it's a really good program. I'd like to see all leagues go to that. It costs a little money, but you can get sponsorship, like, and probably help out on that a big way. But I know I'm excited to get down there. The people at Eastern Brown are always great. whenever we get down there for basketball, and really look forward to it.
Well, I agree with that. I've heard you say that before, and I would echo that in the times I've been there as well. And yeah, it's just thorough soccer coverage. Again,
Mm,
I hope everybody enjoys that. I mean, do follow for the updates. Do look for the interviews. It's just it's awesome to see these kids and from so many different conferences. And then as we get into the postseason, obviously we'll start to get some of those unique matchups. And I look forward to covering it all with you here on overtime.
Yeah, right now, just looking at it, North Adams is 3-1 in the league. They did lose to Fayetteville, who's 3-0, also 7-0 overall. Eastern 5-0 in the league. 8-0 overall. The only or only Shack team that does not have soccer is Manchester, which is probably why they're 3-0 in football,
Yeah,
getting all those kids out. And that's without even mentioning Lynchburg, who's off to a 5-1 start. So, I mean, it's a very good boys league. On the girls' side, Lynchburg and Fayetteville are at the top. Fairfield, one game back, but that's going back. I believe it was 2010 was the last time Lynchburg lost a girls' game on that side.
yeah,
So that's going to be a game I'm definitely going to be looking to get to later in the fall as well. So um, let's get back to some milestones. So we're going to
yeah,
move on to
yeah.
volleyball. Man, this one is one that I didn't expect, but I remember like whenever we got it sent to us. Because I believe you're on that chain as well of getting the information. Adena Athletic Boosters do an amazing job of
Unbelievable.
supporting
Yeah.
them. Like we're big on like social media. Maybe we're not as in tune to it as, like a Derek and Brock are, as they do a great job with that. But we see a lot of things, a lot of different social media accounts. I think Adena Athletic Boosters do some of the best work out there. Um, but they sent out like, Katie Burns, senior at Adena. If you haven't seen her, check back there. We got a couple of live streams where she was just outstanding. She's always outstanding, but like, man, she's good. Um, she breaks the Adena school record for career kills and then also crosses the 1,000 kill mark. The only person in Adena history to do that. So how much does that show how like their depth that they've always had, to where that's such a big deal?
But it is a huge deal because, again, if you know anything about high school volleyball at all, you know what it means to be the only person to
Mhm.
ever do anything in Adena volleyball.
Well, and that's going back to 1975, I believe, was the first year of it, and
Yeah.
like they've won a couple state championships. They've been to state a ton. They have, I don't think it got to a 100 game. Was it 98? I think it was 98 was the SVC win streak mark, which is just
And then there was
ludicrous.
there was a home streak in there
Yeah,
too. I'd have to go back and research.
yeah,
Yeah, it was insane.
yeah.
Yeah, John, it part of that is going back to what I said earlier. I think you've got to go back before rally scoring and after rally scoring, but even after rally scoring, when you think of the incredible hitters that have come through the Adena volleyball program, it is special. And I think there's a lot to be said where you wait your turn, as I said
Mm,
earlier, and you sometimes you become the go-to. But what's been so unique about this Adena team, and by the way, this Adena team now 11-0, and they get the solid setting from Courtney Sowers and Allie Bossert, and they don't always go with a balanced attack. That's what I love about this is they understand who they are and everybody's on a total buy-in in terms of what do I need to do to help the team win. And for Katie, it's the swing away. And what impresses me so much, obviously you give a lot of credit to the passing of Dalton and Smith and company because that's what allows it to be on target for the set to get up there for her.
mm,
I'm sure Katie would tell you herself that her teammates have a lot to do with this, but I credit her conditioning so much.
mhm,
Like when I watch her play, she's playing all the way around this year, and so she's really worked on her passing. She's really worked in serve receive. She plays the net really hard defensively, and for her to just continue to swing and swing and swing and swing, that's impressive. I watched her earlier in the year struggle a little bit, and what did I love about it? I watched her. We came back to Adena like 3 nights later for another big match, and she was so efficient and just
mm,
dominated the match. So you always love when you're covering these special athletes to watch their growth and to watch how they progress through. Obviously, she's been blessed with good health. She's been blessed with tournament success, went all the way to state last year, as we said before. When you do that, you get some extra opportunities. But yeah, what an amazing accomplishment. And um, I like where this team's at. Last year it was Courtney Sowers and Kayla Grooms. This year, Courtney Sowers and Allie Ballster. They do a good job setting. I mentioned the passing. JC Jones has really become someone that's been
Mhm.
a factor for them. They go and get another impressive. It's not like they're just going and playing these teams on the weekend. They're going and whooping them. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they're beating them bad. I'd said early on that you better get them early if you're going to get them. Well, no one has yet, and now here they are, halfway to a perfect season. Obviously, still a ton of volleyball, and they're going to wear the normal bullseye that they
Mhm.
always wear as the Adena volleyball program. But man, they're just really good, and they're just getting better.
I mean, Buckeye Valley 9-3, beat them in 2 quick sets. It's just like little things like that, and Centerburg 7-3. These are
Oh yeah,
these are really
yeah,
good programs, and they just went up to Highland and just really took care of business. Um, 3 quick ones, and that impacts it a good bit too, where you're playing 3 two-set matches, where if you're playing those normally if you're
sure
just
more.
playing those normal, you're playing at least 3 more games in each of them, so that's gonna impact your numbers as well, so I think that stands out more. Just based off of the numbers I can find, she's 2nd all-time in single season kills in the SBC. Cassie Sowers from Westfall, one of
Yeah,
those state years. So,
she's phenomenal.
you gotta make that run to the state.
Cassie might have even played her freshman year under the old
Yes, she did.
scoring, and
Yeah.
then her sophomore, junior, senior year in rally scoring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, just some outstanding volleyball players throughout the SVC, and, you know, Coach Smith just has always done a great job, 2nd all-time in the state of Ohio in career wins. Um, they do a great job with their entire program. I know one of my friends from high school, her daughter just started playing middle school soccer, or not soccer, middle school volleyball, and she was so excited to get to be a part of the program.
Yeah.
And, just that shows how good of a program it is, that you have kids that are just excited to be a part of it. Now, they're probably gonna keep growing and getting better throughout, and they're probably gonna be a part of that varsity program at some point, but, yeah, it shows how good that
Well,
program
they're
is.
they're easy to root for as
Yeah.
you get to know them a little bit last year during their tournament run, their
Mm,
character, who they are, what they
mm,
represent, the way they carry themselves. Just terrific young ladies,
mm.
obviously very, very talented. And you can tell a lot about the way they care for one another because you've been around sports long enough. Like it works because that they're happy for each other. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times it's like, well, why don't I get more swings or why
Right.
don't I get more of this? Well, no, it's, no, we want to set it up and we want her to swing at it. We want her to get as many swings as she
Mhm.
possibly can because we want to win. And you can see it when you watch them play. There's not a bit of jealousy there. And a lot of that goes back to character and the way you treat one another. It's really a cool thing to watch.
Yeah, and you mentioned them being 11-0, and I went over those 3 really good teams they beat the other day,
Yeah.
without even looking at the Lehman Catholic teams that they beat. But they are the only league losses for Uniota and Zane Trace, who have been pretty dominant overall. Those 2 are combined 15-4 overall, and they lost,
Well,
and
Uniota now,
yeah.
their only losses would be Adena and Logan Elm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just outstanding teams as well, and then Zane Trace's only losses are to Adena and Logan Elm. So,
You get a theme there, yeah.
yeah, so those are gonna be some of the outstanding volleyball teams that we've seen, and, we'll get to Logan Elm here in a minute, but, um, somebody that's in your neck of the woods tonight, Western's Addy Brewster crossed the 1,000 assist mark for the Indians.
Yeah, Brewster's been a solid player. You look back through, they're right around the 500 mark this year,
Mhm,
but if you look back over the last 3 years, they've averaged about 15 wins a year and just really had a nice career. And we talked about milestones as she's coming up on different things. Keep in mind when she gets to 1,000 assists or something like that, she's spent the entire career in the 6-2 attack. So
mhm,
you're talking about someone who's gone from about 2 kills per set back in her rookie season all the way up to probably 3.5, 4 throughout the second half of her
mhm,
career. So you're talking about someone who's going to add up by when it's all said and done in both the kills and the assist totals as a pretty respectable totals and as an all-around volleyball
Mm.
player. So, yeah, I mean, Brewster's had a really nice run at it, and congratulations to her on some of these numbers. And keep in mind, still has half of a senior year remaining, and maybe even some tournament success if Western can get the right type of seed.
Well, and you mentioned them being right around 500. So their losses are to Piketon, who, when they go into SVC play, that
SVC.
ends up
Don't
hurting
say
them.
you don't say
Yeah,
any more other than SVC.
yeah, and then they lost in 4 to an unbeaten Valley team. They lost to Notre Dame, lost in 4 to a 7-2 Huntington team, and then a Waverly team that we're gonna talk about in just a minute
Yeah.
who's 8-1. So, I mean, it's not like they're not going out and
Yeah.
challenging themselves, and that's
Yeah.
why they are making these tournament runs where they made it
Yeah.
to a district final last year, played a classic against,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Notre
Yeah.
Dame, and they're a well-coached team, and you've got players that can do a lot of different things, and Brewster is a major part of that. So this week, um, they are at Paint Valley Monday night, um, and then they are at Northwest, and then versus Eastern. That'll be a fun one to check in on because Eastern's a really good program as
And
well.
you know the
So,
rivalry there and so forth. Every time those schools play, especially when both teams are pretty good,
mm,
I'm sure that's a good atmosphere.
yeah. And then speaking of a very tough week as well, you guys highlighted her last week, Sydney Johnson, who got her 1,000th career dig last week and picks up her 1,000th career kill this week. How special is it to be able to do multiple different things at such a high level as Sidney Johnson has been able to?
The all around talent, John. I mean, like I've always said, I've caught some criticism over the years, which is fine because I welcome just intelligent volleyball
Mhm,
discussion. But a lot of times when it comes to like player of the years or those high regard type of comments, there is a difference of playing all the way around. I just made the comment about, Katie Burns. What she's doing is even more
mhm,
impressive this year because she's playing all the way around
yeah,
and she's active and she has a different role when when you have the ability to impact the match in many different ways, you obviously become a great player. It's just
mhm,
like if you're not familiar with volleyball, I'll give you a basketball analogy. Be someone who can shoot it. If they're a specialty spot up shooter in a corner, that's a specialty player,
mhm,
right? Or you have a player they can shoot it, but they can also score it off the dribble. They assist, they rebound, they defend, they do a lot of different things. That's what we're talking about here. When you can attack at the net and produce at a high level, but also defend across the back row, you're impacting the sport in all six rotations. Because keep in mind, when you're coming across the back, unless you're attacking from the back row behind that 10-foot line, obviously you're not really an offensive
mhm,
threat unless you're one of those real elite players,
mhm,
right? But when you go back across there and you're not a liability for your coach in terms of leaving you out there as a
mhm.
passer, well, now you become a next level player because your ability to help win at all six rotations.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, she's been outstanding for them. Got a sophomore, Taryn Gillett, who's been, is probably their number 2 hitter. He's also their top setter. So can you talk about like the difficulty of doing those 2 things at a high level as well?
Well, and we talked about Waverly a little bit last week in terms of these are some kids that have been looked at here coming up through. But it's a responsibility. It's a chemistry thing, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're a quarterback and you want to have chemistry with every wide receiver, well, a lot of times if you're a setter, you need to have chemistry with your hitters. Well, then if
Mm,
you turn around and you become a hitter, you need chemistry with your setter.
mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those take rep after rep after rep to build that chemistry and that cohesion in terms of your rotation. So yeah, I think that's what's neat. These kids have come up through. They've been able to get better every year, and then now all of a sudden the Waverly team, and it's all seeming to click for them, and they're off to just an incredible start.
Mhm. And then, yeah, so going back to their tough week, Tuesday, they've got 8-0 Valley coming in, and then they are at Wheelersburg, which we'll talk about in just a minute.
Yeah.
6-1 Wheelersburg on Thursday. So be a good test to see where Waverly is exactly. They beat a good Miami Trace team last week, and just overall, really exciting time for volleyball over there in Tigertown. So speaking of Tiger Town, maybe not trademark Tiger Town. I don't know if trademark a high school. place or not. But Tuesday, you guys had the 5-setter at Circleville. Just kind of talk me through that one. Logan Elm beats Circleville in 5.
Yeah, just unbelievable. Logan Elm now 9-1, and we know how good Claire King is. I think she had 29 kills that night, and but I thought their balance. They did get some balance. Adeline Smith I thought was really important. She was double digit in kills, and then Marlo Smith, and then Groff and Ingram and Liggins and Savage. They all produced at different times of the match. Obviously, King's the go to, and that's where the ball needs to go. But at the same time, those other kids are able to impact the game each set than the overall match by producing on a more efficient rate when they get their swings. And then obviously in the back row, I thought Petty was really good, Bankley and Green. Um, I talked about stuffing the stat sheet. People that have listened to us here throughout the year know that I'm high on Kennedy Graw. But I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about to answer your question, maybe a little bit more in a thorough way that you asked a second ago. Groff in that Circleville win, 35 assists, 28 digs, 7 kills, 3 blocks, and she was their top server in the match. So there's exactly what I'm talking about. Obviously, if you're the setter for Claire King, your job's very important to put the ball on time on target. But at the same time, Groff is just one of those winning players. She's so efficient. You just watch her go about it, and it's not going to ooh and ah you, and it's not going to be the stat sheet, and it's not going to be the flamboyant. It's just solid. It's just winning. It's winning volleyball, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and they're obviously a very well coached program as they've been getting closer throughout the year as they are growing as well. So,
Well, Circleville's fine.
yeah,
Circle's 5-3. They've played a tough schedule. Allie Thornsley's really really good. I think if they get a little healthier, back to full strength, maybe use as a hitter or whatever. She's a really talented setter. I mean, Hoskins and Addison Edgington there with the left hand. I thought Blakeman was really good in that match. Emily Edgington, Fleck, and West, and Davis in the back row. So look, I mean that Circleville team, they're just fine. They're going to go on to find themselves really really dangerous team second half of the year. I'll be anxious to watch that rematch.
yeah. And the Logan Elm, their only loss is to an 8-1 New Lexington team, which pretty much every year we have them on stream either in the district final or in the regional.
We saw them last year.
Yeah,
Adena beat them, right?
yes,
In the tournament last
they
year,
are an outstanding team, and that was a 3-set match. So that one was on a Saturday where you play multiple teams. So the second one went 27-25. So maybe if you got to beat them 3 times, maybe it's a different story. But
Sure.
overall, shout out to New Lexington, one of the better teams in our not our coverage area, one of those 5 schools. So I believe it's Marietta, Warren, New Lexington, Sheridan, and Miller.
Well, and it's just weird the way
Yeah.
the Southeast District works that way.
Yeah.
They come from way over there, and
Yeah.
they probably sometimes probably don't get treated the way they should from a seeding thing because they're not as known or whatever.
Right.
But man, when they have their really good teams, they become really dangerous when they enter the Southeast.
And really just going back to, when we played them when I was coaching was in baseball. You didn't like to see them because you didn't know anything about them. You knew they played Sheridan, you knew they played in a really good league,
Sure.
and it was just like you don't know, like when they come in record wise. We saw them down at the Convo. They beat Megs, who came in as the 1 seed
Right.
and just dominated throughout the year. They had very little size and
Yeah.
just 2 unreal guards, and you're like, this isn't going to be fun to play against. And they end up winning and making a run to the regional semifinals. So they are before they lost to state champions in boys basketball. So just New Lexington, Sheridan, those, and I'll go to Marietta and Warren. Those are schools. Whenever you see a team from around here playing them, just know they're going to be in for a battle more times than not. So, that, as you mentioned, that Circleville team is going to be fine overall. But then Thursday may have been the least efficient day in SOSA history. So we had 5 different people there. I'm counting Joel Webb because he's now on the Road Eats segment with Derek. So with Joel and Derek drove separate. I drove separate. You drove separate. Dewey drove separate. Like we all had to leave at different times. It was just like we all live in the same town technically. Dewey might technically a different address. You might have a different city address, but yeah, least efficient night ever. But like it was so worth it to go down there. 5 set match. I was originally going to write about it, but Derek was going to get down. He wrote a really good article
Yeah,
on the match,
yeah.
and there were just highlights throughout it. I know you're probably going to see a couple of different things. Throw a reel out there of the end of the match where I believe it got to like 38,000 views on Facebook, and it's our most viewed ever regular season match that SOSA's done, which has gone back a few years. Now tournament games tend to do a little bit better, but this was our biggest viewed match, and for a big reason.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's probably, if not my favorite, certainly up there in terms of the ones I've called throughout the years. I just I was impressed, as I said earlier, by the atmosphere, the event.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, Wheelersburg's so good. They come in, they travel well, so just set up for a great atmosphere. And with Gallia winning 16-14, they survived a match point
Mhm.
there to do it. And now they're 7-0, and they'll play a Southwebster. I think they have Athens on the. Here's another coach that's about
Yeah.
to throw something at the screen at me in
Yeah.
terms of me talking ahead, but the fan in me, I'm allowed to do that,
Yeah.
right? You can look ahead and think that, hang on, they're in for a really good run here
Mhm.
of having a chance to win every time they play. And I just was real impressed by their balance. There was the Riley Saunders with 7 kills, and Aubrey Frazier and Abby Clark had 13. But then this freshman, Aspen Barnes, if you haven't seen her play yet, she's just really, really good. I think I had her unofficially 29. I never did get to get.
I think that's what it ended up
Oh
being.
wow, maybe.
Boy,
See, maybe
there we go.
I've been hanging out with John Bruce in terms of
It's
the
so hard to keep
statistical
some of
ability,
those stats.
and it's here's what's scary about her. She's a special talent, but you can still see a little freshman in her game, a little bit of raw skill,
Mhm.
which just means that she's going to get even better. But like what I loved about her, she wasn't afraid of the moment at all. Like she had like
Yeah.
5 aces in it. She comes in, she was struggling with her serve a little bit from a percentage standpoint. And on that stage, you'd think I would impact her a little bit.
Mhm.
Nah, she just comes out and she fires away. In the middle of the match, she struggled a few times with her serve. Later in the match, was it going to impact her? Nope. Yeah, I mean, it's just
Mhm.
like she was not afraid of the moment at all.
Mhm.
There were times late in the match where a lot of young hitters struggled, John, to transition off the net. The game will begin one fast. I mean, think about how much faster that volleyball
Mhm.
game is than a junior high
Mhm.
volleyball game a year ago. So the match gets going fast, and you get stuck at the net, and the young hitters won't get off to the 10-foot line and go get ready to hit. She made a real high IQ play. I called it there in the match when you and Dewey was calling it with me. Dewey does such a good job. But she had such a high IQ play to keep the ball on her side one time, and she transitioned off the net, and we were sitting on that near side. You could hear her almost demanding the
Mhm.
volleyball back. I mean, it's one of those where she
Yeah.
was calling. And at her age, that was just that was unbelievable, and it was just kind of special to watch. And I mean, listen, they served it well behind her. Jason McWhorter with the I think had 6 aces. Chloe Bennett I thought had kind of a coming out party for me because a year ago I thought she was solid, but their libero here she had 31 digs. She had 22 serve receives with 1 error in a 5 set match. So how is Barnes and Frazier and Clark and company getting those swings? Because the ball is getting passed on
Mhm.
target to the incredible setter, and that's where I want to go next. Is you've heard my setter bias, and Grayson Clark is just so good. I mean,
It's
she is just so good. She's fast, she's quick. There's no, I always call it there's no boohoo factor with her.
yeah.
Like when you're a setter, look, your passing's not always going to be perfect. You're going to have to come off the 10-foot line to go get it. You're going to be tight to the net. You got to be able to recognize, am I live? Can I take it over? I have to keep it on my side. She's phenomenal. I mean, she touched the ball. I think the stat I saw on the ball handling side alone, I think she touched it 161 times as a setter in 5 sets. And I bet I couldn't give you more than 3 or 4 times I disagreed with
Mhm.
her choice on where
Yeah.
to go with the ball. I mean, she's just so good. And when you're that good at 5-1 setter, and she has that type, that's why I wanted to highlight those other hitters as well,
Mhm.
because when you can spread it out across the net That's just really good. She had 52 assists. You talk about milestones. How about getting 50 in
Yeah.
one night? That'll get you to those milestones a little quicker. So yeah, 52 assists, and then um, just unbelievable to spread it out. But listen, make no mistake about it, Wheelersburg is so good. I mean,
Yeah.
they're really good. 6-1. They play an incredible schedule. They still play Circleville, Logan Elm. I think Bishop Hartley. I saw the other
Yeah.
day. Bishop Hartley's lost to like Jonathan Alder and DeSales and Blue Carroll
Yeah.
or whatever. So it gives you an idea what
Yeah.
the Berg's playing. So by the time they go through SOC play and get in the tournament, the advantage they have over Gallia is their D5. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So Gallia is going to go into that loaded D4, as I believe is where they're still
Yeah.
at. And that's going to be really, really deep. But, Alyssa Mullins, player of the year type of candidate. She was 20-20 that night and kills and digs, I think 20 and 23 respectively. Woodard and Hall do such a good job. Walker as well. And then Miley Gleam. I talked about Chloe Bennett on the one side. I don't want to take Miley Gleam for granted because again we know her a little bit more
Mhm.
because she's been doing it a little bit longer, a little older. And then remember my setter bias the same way I said about Grayson Clark, Ella Chamberlain, as always, 38 assists, 29 digs. She was terrific, and yeah, she just does an outstanding job. And so two of the better setters, if not, gosh, certainly two of the top five setters,
Yeah.
if not the two best setters in our coverage area. And it was just a pleasure to watch. And again, if you like volleyball, go back and watch that one if you didn't get a chance to.
Even if you don't like volleyball. Like I was somebody who
Yeah,
like in school I didn't have a lot of time, playing soccer and
yeah,
just being awesome overall, but I didn't have a lot of time. And then like the one time I went, like our best player tore ACL, so I was like,
yeah,
I don't feel like I probably shouldn't go. And then like after like going to Wright State tournament was there and getting to
yeah,
go
yeah,
watch
yeah,
them, and then now being a part of SOSA, I try to get out and cover soccer, just make sure to cover it as much as possible. But man, when these big time matchups are happening, like I'll just take the night off. Like I won't work and I'll just go watch the game and just enjoy it.
yeah.
And that was one of those really enjoyable nights. And you mentioned Grayson Clark. I got her career stats coming up. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but as a freshman, she averaged 8.3 assists a set. Last year, 9.8 assists a set. This year, 10.9 already.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's getting
she
up
was
into elite company.
over 1,000 assists early-ish last year, and that was one of the things we talked about. That was when she first got on our radar. We saw that and we were like, "Oh man, they have no juniors. They got one senior. Well,
Yeah,
now they have no seniors.
yeah.
So imagine how good that team is right now with another year and a half of putting it together. They're Division 4. I think they're gonna have a really good chance to make a deep run in that because Warren is 3. I believe Logan Elm is 3 as
Really?
well. Yeah,
That's
that's what I was just
okay.
trying to
Because
find.
that wasn't like that a year ago,
Yeah,
right?
so, yeah, I was trying to
Because I
find.
was thinking if all those teams are together again, they're going to beat up on each other. That is a unique thing to take a look at there because that's what makes Wheelersburg so dangerous is they're going to
Mm,
play this schedule and then they're going to come back in, I assume, to five still,
yeah.
and they're going to be a tough out.
Yeah, actually, let me find for sure because I wanna make sure where Logan Elm is because Logan Elm may be 4, which would be
Well,
Warren
last year I
Valley.
was thinking Warren knocked out Logan Elm and Circleville after Logan Elm had knocked out Gallia. So, like, I
Mm,
was thinking if all those teams are still together, that's a shame because you're going to have some really, really good volleyball
mhm,
teams losing before you even reach like a district semifinal or district final
yeah.
level.
Logan Elm is 4. Let me find Warren. Warren is also 4, so man, that's a
Yes, that's
yeah,
load. That's what I
yeah,
thought. So
yeah,
that's a loaded bracket, and again, that's why regular season the seeding is really really important. Try to get you some home
yeah,
matches and so forth.
and there's that district is gonna be
Yep, no
unbelievable
question.
because those are, Warren 10-1, Logan Elm 8-1, and then Calumet's still unbeaten and has a very good chance to stay that way.
When I don't care
Uh,
what their record is, you don't want to see Circleville in your bracket. That's a
no,
tough, tough
yeah,
out.
and then, yeah, it's just those are just outstanding teams and Wheelersburg, even though they're 5, it's not
Now is Uniota three? Because I said some.
Unio's 4.
They are
Yeah.
4.
Or
Oh,
no,
wow.
no, they should be 3
I thought they were
because
3
the
because I said the other day, I was like, "This is gonna sound silly, in the southeast part of the state, it might be better to be 3
yeah.
than be in that bracket we just mentioned."
Yeah, because going through, like, well, those teams you just mentioned are unbelievable. Uniota
I
is
thought on the
3.
girls' enrollment side, they were a little bit bigger, so you're
Yeah.
going up to 3, and you're probably getting into maybe even an Athens there,
Mhm.
if I remember from last year's.
Yeah, Athens is on the lower end of it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of teams in it. That could be the only
Now
issue.
you do that's
Yeah.
right. So you do combine with some teams, so it's hard to be telling where you're pulling from.
Yeah.
So that's a luck of the draw, maybe.
Yeah, because I can see on this right now Sheridan, Miami Trace, Marietta, and then Union Athens are
Okay.
all in it as well, and that's just on the bottom half, and that usually if Marietta Chillicothe is also in it, Chillicothe went to 5 with Uniota, so I mean there's
I didn't
6.
see Chillicothe, Miami Trace on the Tuesday night, depending on when you're listening to this.
Yeah.
Maybe it's already happened, but like that's for first place in the FAC. And again, I know Chillicothe is right around 500, but keep in mind they've lost actually to Unita twice,
Mhm.
once in a 5-set,
Yeah,
each once on a weekend match. And um, I think they even lost in 5 to Southeastern.
Southeastern,
So I
yeah.
mean, look, they've been tested a little bit. That's still a really good team. That
Mm.
Chillicothe team is. I'm anxious to see them in person.
Yeah, it should be a fun one over at the Hat, right? Hatton
That
Gymnasium?
is, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
so, um,
And keep in
yeah.
mind, I know Thursday night, I don't think we're gonna be able to do a game, but you mentioned Waverly and Wheelersburg, and then
Mhm.
Alexander Athens play for first place in the TVC Ohio.
Mhm, and then also Tuesday, we got Valley and Waverly, so, I mean, if you get a chance this week, go out and watch some volleyball, like,
Yeah,
we're gonna have the stream on Tuesday, but overall, there's just gonna be some outstanding volleyball throughout the
yeah.
week as well. So, moving on to something we haven't covered yet this year, we had a state champion last year in boys golf, but overall, we have not gotten into boys and girls golf very much. I know uh, it's probably a sport like cross country that is probably undercovered, because like we get out and we cover a lot of stuff, but there's only so much. Uh, that we can do. We are still a small company. We have great sponsors, but there's only so many of us that can write pictures, all
Yeah.
that. So haven't been out to a lot of golf, but I know if you check out svcsportstalk.weebly.com, not nearly as easy to get to as svcsportszone.com was on just the overall, just like, hey, here it is. I tried the .com, that didn't work. Like that was it, and I went over some, like, advice earlier. Here's some advice, like, really dig into, like, what website host you're gonna use because that was, I'm
Yeah,
not gonna say what the website was because I think
okay,
they might be okay, but, um, yeah, if you go to, the old Coconut Wall Papa Twitter, I
yeah,
can't believe I lost that. That was so much fun to have that stupid name. You can see me complaining a lot about the website
yeah.
host, which I wouldn't follow me because I complain way too
Now
much,
on the
but
SVC
yeah.
side I did get a chance to go up to Crown Hill and watch a
Mhm,
little bit, and then, it's not a real long drive on a Wednesday night, depending on the time. I may try to get down to Big Beaver.
mm,
I heard the other night down at, the Portsmouth West game, they were talking about their golf team,
mm,
giving them a shout out, and so there's there's a lot of league races heating up.
yes,
Keep in mind that golf ends a lot quicker than the
mm,
other fall sports, so we're actually getting down to the
mhm.
crunch time here in terms of crowning league champions.
Yeah, and we don't have like the SEC is what we have the most of because Aaron Lee Master just does a
Yes, he does.
phenomenal
He
job
does.
of organizing and getting that stuff out. I know for a long time you used them. I've used them for a long time as well. On svcsportstalk.weebly.com, we have all of the results from SVC play on there. You mentioned a lot of league races are heating up. One that is not is the SVC
Yeah.
because Westfall has been unreal, led by Brendan Bigler, who made it to state last year. Well, the team made it to state last year. He
Yeah.
finished, I believe, 21st. But he's been unbelievable. He's averaging a straight up 36, so he's averaging par through the 5 SVC matches. But he shot a low of 33 at Crown Hill. I know the SVC record is 30. Um, I remember when you posted that on the SEC Sports Zone and just unreal. Like, how do you shoot a 30? Like, I can't shoot a 30 in 5 holes. So, um, Bigler has been unbelievable for them. They are 8 points free in SVC play. Now, in the SVC, you play 8 different league matches. Sometimes they play 2 in a night, so you
They
play
count them different.
yeah, they count them different. So the idea is each team hosts their own SVC match. And now with less golf courses around in our area, sometimes you'll play at multiple different places. I know Uniota used to be JC's. Now I think JC's is multiple. I think Uniota might be the VA now, but I don't even know if they use the VA at
Not
this
in the
point.
league. They
Yeah.
don't. They use it in their invite.
Yeah. So um Westfall has just been unbelievable, though. They are 8 points free as second place in the SVC, just completely dominating so far. Bigler, along with his brother Brody, Colton Kraft, Colton Brungarth, who we're going to talk about a little bit when we get to the tournament stuff as well. Dalton Bush, Ian Camden. They have a great chance. They finished ninth last year in the state. It may have been 10th. They finished ninth or 10th last year in the state. Not saying they can push for a state championship because those numbers end up being crazy, but I feel like they got a chance to get in that 5-6 range, which is very elite for teams in our area. I think Piketon finished third one year, and overall it takes all 5 of your guys once you get to the tournament. You play 6 in the regular season, 5 in the
Mhm.
tournament. You got to have 5 guys or girls play at just an elite level to have a chance to get into that top 5.
Yeah, the Westfall team is really, really good. That night I was up there, they as a team were flirting with under par
Yeah.
as a team that night, and then it's you mentioned how much they're out in front, but what's impressed me about them is you can tell by following a little bit of social media and some different things, you can tell that they're very focused on themselves.
Mhm.
They're very focused on chasing their own history, chasing their own personal best. That's kind of how you have to be with golf,
Mhm.
right? Night in, night out, you don't have a lot of control of your opponent. You're playing your golf course. You're just going out and trying to post the very
Mhm.
best score you can, and Westfall's been able to do that. So yeah, real impressive as they get into the tournament. Now, obviously, when you get to the highest level of high school golf, you really get into some of the bigger schools and some of the different things, and some teams from areas that probably play more golf courses that prepare you
Mhm.
for the types of golf courses you're going
Yeah.
to play at that level. But nonetheless, there's some nice individuals in the SBC, but Westfall, I would say not only for the SBC, but really for the entire Southeast District, setting a pretty good standard.
Yeah, one of those other SVC golfers, Tucker Taylor from Huntington.
You know,
The first couple matches, they didn't have a team. They now have a team, so they are in the lower half of the SVC standings. But he was actually the medalist for the first 2 matches. And I believe him and Bigler tied for the second one, but he shot a low of a 33 at JC's. He averages a 38.4. Right now, I believe he's second in the SVC Player of the Year race, which I mean, 2 full strokes behind, which is a lot, whenever you
right.
break that down because the SVC, not only do you play the 8 matches, but you get credit for 7 and you drop your lowest
Drop your
score
lowest, yeah.
or highest score, I guess, when you look at it that way. So, Taylor is one that you might wanna look at for a possibility of making it to the state tournament as an individual because Huntington as a team won't, but he's been outstanding for them, and then some other teams to watch. So I wanted to really look at it because like we have I'm not gonna say SVC bias, but like we get the most information on the SVC, especially in golf. Waterford is a team to watch for. They finished a stroke behind Valley last year. Valley makes it to the final four, or not the final four, but the final 12, I guess. And one of the things that like I'll say it over and over and over again, like there's a slight pull bias against the Southeast when it comes to some of these things. Like, why does the Southeast get one golf team? Why not get two? Like everyone else gets two. What's it hurt to put a 13th team in if you determine that another area gets more than two? But that's I think I went off on that last year too, but like it just doesn't make sense. But Waterford returns their 5 from last year that finished 1 stroke behind Valley for a trip to the state tournament. Reese Lang, Ron Doak. Doak, very good baseball player as well. Lead a really good group for the Wildcats. They last made the state tournament in 2015. I think they're probably the favorite in Division Three to make it out of the Southeast. And once again, it should be two. Manchester is another one. They finished fifth last year. They returned their top five. Parker Hayslip, very good basketball player as well. So you would have seen him on a couple of live streams last year. He averaged just above a 37. I think it was like a 37.2 last year as a junior. He was the low scorer that returns from last year's district tournament. Manchester last made it to state in 2021. They're going to be wanting to make it back. Hayslip, I think, has a great chance individually. Um, Fairland and West Union, they finished outside of the slots in Division Two last year. They returned for their top five. Guy Academy finished fifth, but they returned their entire top five. Here's a crazy one. They've made 20 state tournament appearances in golf. Now, a lot of those come like when they were a bigger school,
Right.
but still 20 appearances. They haven't made one since 2022, but they've
Yeah.
been outstanding. Some other individuals to look for. Ironton's Carson Blankenship, Gaia's Breyden Cardwell, and Cash Jones. That's a great name. That's a very good name. Now, if he went with Cardwell, Cash and Card, along with Lynchburg Clays, Noah Wilkin, I know I'm missing some people as well.
Sure.
But Bigler and Brungarth, who actually finished third last year and would have qualified as an individual.
Yeah.
Advance. And that was one of the things was it was the only reason why, trying to think of his name from South Webster, Owen Malt. Only reason he qualified last year as an individual, he shot under par, but Valley made it as a team. And he was like 3 strokes back, but like it took that because the Southeast only gets one, and it
Right.
just
Right.
it's
No, sure.
that's what it was that I kind of let loose on because I know how many people watch this, so I know I can go I can let loose on certain
Yeah.
things.
Well, and the thing I would add to that is I've said this because I've covered golf for quite some
Yeah.
time. I'm going back to like when, like Matty Schultz, who's still playing
Yes.
golf from Westfall and so forth. But like the thing I try to educate people on is that's why you need to understand what it means to be a district champion
Mhm.
in golf. Is like there's no like just kind of get on a list and you go to the next round or you make this or make that. You know what I mean? Like when
Mhm.
you are the district champion in golf or the district champion team in golf, that's a big, big deal.
Yes.
Like when you're going to the state in golf, that's a big deal because there's not the same amount of opportunity. We don't even use the terminology regional in golf.
Mhm.
They just go sectional, district, into the state. So all of these, you'll hear track qualifiers, for regional qualifiers or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
there's no such thing in golf. So like I think that's where a lot of our golfers get cheated because people aren't really educated on what it means to be fifth in the district. Well, fifth in the district, or excuse me, fourth in the district, but in the regional
Mhm.
track, you know what I mean? You're fourth in the district in golf gives you a nice round, better luck next year. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's just, I think that's important for people to understand.
Yeah, and I wanna make sure to shout out Cameron Phillips from Valley was the one who won
Oh
the
yeah,
state
yeah,
championship last year. He's now at Kentucky. Not bad. And I said this before, and kinda going to, not, Guthrie. Anytime you go to the Power 4 or, like,
oh
SEC to
yeah, yeah.
play, like, man, it's such a different level.
Different level.
To get recruited at those places
Yeah,
is really special,
sure.
and Cameron Phillips is one of those really special, golfers that we've had in our area. So, speaking of that, another one, Paige Weiss was one. She finished
Yes.
3rd last year
Yeah.
from Westfall. Westfall's taken a slight step back this year, but anytime you're gonna do that when you have
Yeah.
4 outstanding senior golfers as they did last year, as they made it to the state tournament. Um, Once again, they make it very consistently, but it looks like this year, more than likely, they will not, make it to the state. But last year, they had a nice run, I believe finished 6th. They have an outstanding golfer back in Michelle Pickett. She's one of the better golfers in the SVC, but the SVC has some outstanding girls golfers. Zane Trace. Now, this is the SVC race where we talked about it on the girls'
Right.
side. It's a 4-point lead with 3 matches to go, which is pretty big because St. Trace hasn't finished worse than second. But Piketon did beat them in the first match of the season. But St. Trace holds a 4 point lead over Piketon. So more than likely it will be St. Trace winning that. They're led by sophomore Roselle Ladovo. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Um, she averages a 38.4 in league play. She actually was the SVC Player of the Year last year in a year with Paige Weiss in the league. So,
Yeah.
a couple things happened in that to where it helped because I think Weiss may have been disqualified for like a wrong card or something like that. But still, anytime you can win the
I don't
league
even remember that. Yeah.
with how talented that Westfall team was, is very impressive. Last year, she finished 11th at the state tournament. She was the number 2 freshman in the state tournament last year. So if she keeps progressing like she has been, she's gonna have a chance to finish in the top 5, maybe a couple of different times
Yeah.
at that state tournament, if not a little bit higher. And her team with Mary and Anna Helber, who both average in the 42s for Zane Trace, has a very solid 3 as they prepare for the postseason. They're going to have a chance to get to that state tournament. A couple of other standouts across the SEC, Layla Kelly, who we've seen on the basketball court, can really play, an outstanding golfer as well. She averages a 41.6 in SVC play. I know she was just outside of that state as an individual last year. Adena's Avery Ader, whose sister Sidney golfs in college. And then Unia has a solid 3. Now, if you look at where they're at in SVC play, you might be like, "Man, how do you have a solid 3 and you're tied for third?" They have rarely had all of them at the same time. When they have had them, they've been very good. Elise Shoblock, Magnolia Holbert, Miley Smith have all been very good at different times for them. Um, if they can be healthy, they're going to have an interesting chance because Division One isn't as strong in the East Southeast. They finished 1 stroke back last year with those 3 playing well in the district
Yeah.
and missed the state tournament by 1 stroke last year. So they're going to be an interesting one to look for. Piketon's got some good depth as well, and then Adena and Westfall. But Zane Trace is the big one in SVC play.
Well, and it's what's cool about golf is you hope your team can show up and be really good on that day, but if not, it still gives the individual an opportunity to play well and move on. And certainly a handful of individuals there at their respective divisions, I think, are going to give us a great opportunity to be represented at the highest level.
Now, also one of the things where we mentioned like golf information isn't like super available
Yeah.
at this point. So when we're talking about these players that are back, it's with the assumption that they're playing as seniors or as juniors,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they're returning to their team. So any information, if you can reach out and let us know if anything is incorrect, we would like to correct that for the future. But some other favorites to make a push to the state tournament. West Union qualified for the first time ever last fall. They returned 4 of their top 5, including Emmy Stapleton and Nina McCann. So that's a team to look for. Minford finished 3rd last year. They were 1 spot behind West Union. They returned their top 5, Ava Flagg, Riley Casey, and Madeline Bennett. Minford's never been to the state tournament in girls
Yeah.
golf, so they are looking to help push there. 2 players, I mentioned her earlier, Layla Kelly. She finished 1 stroke outside of qualifying last year, along with Ironton's Marin Walters. Both were sophomores a year ago. Look for them to make a push in Division
Yeah.
Two as well. And then in Division One, as we mentioned, Unio was 1 stroke back last year, but Athens' Ellie Beck Aiden qualified last year as a junior, and then also Isabel Perini from Circleville and Jackson's Aubrey Arnold are also big time
Yeah.
threats as they were only a couple strokes back last year in Division One as
And when
well.
you rattle all those names off, you kind of remember following them in the
Yeah.
postseason and so forth. And I think the fact that they had that experience goes a long way. Like if you've never played golf, I mean, goodness, sometimes golf's just nerve wracking on the first tee on a Saturday morning in front of people, right?
Mhm.
You're playing at that level, and it's all on the line. There is an experience of just learning how to play in front of people and learning how to handle yourself, getting off to a good
Mhm.
start, getting off to a bad start, whatever it may be. Learning golf courses, learning how uh, golf in Southeast Ohio, as we get into the tournament, sometimes plays different because the weather starts to
Mhm.
change. The fall weather, courses play a little different than they do throughout the year. Right now, they'll dry out and they'll kind of play fast. Then you get a little cooler, gets damp out. Sometimes golf courses play a little longer. So it's just unique to follow some of these people. But coming down the stretch in some of these league races as well as into the postseason, it's going to be fun to watch, and we'll make sure we try to get some golf on here.
I'm gonna say something. A lot of times I'll play by myself. Like I haven't played in a couple years. My back is not great.
What's Father Time? Sunday evening.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. I've retired from tennis baseball and rarely play golf at this point. Like a couple of years ago, I was playing like way too much poker, and I had like a really good night, and I was like, I'm gonna give all this money back. So I went out and bought golf clubs and like hit it hard for
Oh,
like
yes, yes.
3 months, and
If you'd have
that's what.
called me, I could have given you better advice.
But yeah, but I will tell you, outside of my driver, I did not buy high quality clubs because I was like, I'm not gonna play for very long,
Yeah.
and I was right. But I would play through a lot. I can't imagine these kids playing in front of anybody.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
I play through and I'm like, "I'm gonna shake this," and I try to, like, convince myself I'm not going to, and I do it every time, so
yeah.
that's yeah, that embarrassment of shaking it in front of, like,
Uh,
3 dudes I'm never gonna see before that are playing very slow, and I'm
yeah,
just like, "I just wanna hurry up and get through this hole." So, like, yeah,
yeah,
it's just I miss the par 3. Like, the par 3
yeah.
was great. I would still not be good on
Well,
it
you
now,
mentioned
but
30 back in the day. That was on Running Fox
yeah,
at the time. Later, Rivers, what was
River's
it?
Edge.
Rivers Edge, and then obviously not even there now. But yeah, we do lack some golf courses in our area now, and we're still fortunate enough to have a little bit of a mixture in the league. But I do think as you get out into the district, certainly if you're lucky enough to go to the state, you start getting on your Scarlet and Gray course, you start
Mhm.
getting Star, you start getting to some of those places, and the length can really become a factor, and the speed of the greens and some of those types of things in the short game can become a factor. So that's why I say the experience that kids get in years past, that matters a lot, and it matters a lot more than you think.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a very difficult game and very mentally you gotta be very mentally strong to do it,
Yeah,
and that's what these kids are, and seeing them have a chance to maybe make it to that next level, is gonna be fun to follow, and I'm
yeah,
glad that we're able to at least highlight it a
yeah,
little bit, probably not as much as it should be, but at least a little bit here, and hopefully, we're able to get out
yeah,
and see them throughout the year as well, so, a couple things just to kind of put a cap on this week's episode, we've gone pretty long. Um, Friday night, Zane Trace at Piketon, big SVC matchup.
yeah,
Both teams dropped a week 3 game to a very good team. Zane Trace loses to Amanda Clear Creek, and Valley beats Piketon. That's going to be a big one. We've talked. Are probably the best team in the SVC, but Piketon and Zane Trace are fighting for that number 2 spot with a chance to push at Uniota, who, as we've said, hasn't been particularly challenged yet. So maybe they face those teams, get a big challenge, but for each of them, it's a big matchup.
well, no question. I mean, first of all, what my eye is seeing here early in the year is certainly thinking Indiana is best team in the SVC, but I am intrigued by this matchup. I think a big key starts with Piketon's defensive front, being able to stop
Mm.
the run against St. Trace. Um,
B. Johnson is a monster.
he is, and when you see a little bit of the Valley game the other
Mhm.
night, it sounds like they competed in that area,
Yeah.
but it seemed like as the night went on, maybe warmed down a little bit.
Mhm.
I caught Coach Gallion on the show with you guys
Mhm.
the other night. Another big factor is in the special teams. Will their kicker be back? Remember
Yes.
he talked about that. I think that's huge. Field position, uh, tight game, the ability for a drive not to stall, maybe still get 3 points out of it. All of that stuff becomes really important. So that's something to go. And then on the other side, Zane Trace's ability to get a little pressure on Gaulian and defend the pass. I
Mhm.
mean, are they going to be able to do some things there? So those are some of the things just early on. I'm going to be doing more game prep once I get through my volleyball game this
Mhm.
week. Right now, all my prep's been on that
Right.
volleyball match, but I'm going to dive into Zane Trace and Python a little bit more. But on the early prep, that those are some of the things that jump out at me.
One thing for me is Jaden Higgins' health because I know he left after only 5 carries, against Amanda. If he's healthy, that makes them even more
Oh,
dynamic because if you can't sell out on Bryce Johnson and Gunnar
Yeah.
McCullough, then that makes all 3 of them so much more dynamic. So that's gonna be something for me to watch for, because Johnson, McCullough are a handful as is, but you throw in Higgins, and that's a very, very good run game. So I'm excited. I'll get down and at least watch the first half of that one with you guys, on Friday night. So looking forward to that. A lot of big week 4 games in football. We'll review a majority of them. But as you mentioned, on the show, one of the things on the coaches call-in show, like we try to go through scores and whatnot. Like this week was like boom, 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 boom. If you don't like downtime, like watch this week's episode because like I just wanted to get up and like stretch my legs, couldn't do it
Yeah.
because we had like 8 coaches call in like back to back to
Yeah.
back, and we never took a break. But man, when the coaches call in after they lose, like I know you've done the scoreboard show before. You appreciate it, but man, like, sometimes it's really good stuff because, like, you can hear those, like, fully honest thoughts of, like,
Yeah.
what happened, that's one of the things you appreciate because we know as coaches how, you know, the media stuff after games, even after you win, sometimes isn't fun. And then after losses, it really shows how serious you take it to highlight your kids
Yeah.
and whatnot. So we appreciate any coach that calls in or even just reaches out and be like, "Hey, I'm not doing it this week." That's fine too.
I I echo that
Mhm.
a bunch, and I say that not just as a media person of like, hey, we want you to call in so we can have a show. I say that as a 30-year coach myself, that win or lose, it's part of your modern day in 2025 with technology and
Yeah,
media. It's part of your duty. Like, you know what I mean? It's like covering your kids. And I believe that. And if you
yeah,
disagree with that, that's fine. But like what I would tell young coaches is in a professional way, always be an ambassador for your program. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like, take care of your facilities, take care of your stats, take care of your kids, promote your kids. And I think that's really, really important in terms of building that team culture and utilizing, some people say stats highlight more the individual. Yeah, I disagree. I think sometimes that when you highlight statistics like earlier, we were highlighting the stats of a Katie Burns, but
mhm,
we're recognizing that that doesn't happen without great passing and great setting, and all same way there. I think the other well, like when we're talking about Cartae Ligon's rushing for over 400 yards, we're saying, hey, give a shout out to that offensive line
right.
as well. So um, I think it's important. I know we've gone long here tonight, but I think that's important on the call-in show, and I enjoy listening to you guys when I'm on my way home from whatever game we're doing.
And it's me also is like getting to meet and getting to know some of these kids.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you become fans of seeing them have the success. So like and other people do. Like I'm gonna go back, I'll probably talk about that Menford basketball team forever. But like starting in soccer, just seeing those kids and being able to highlight them. And then a couple of those basketball kids that were really good didn't play, but were at every game, like and you get to know these kids, and it just makes you a fan of them. So, like, you're gonna follow them beyond high school, and because they had coaches that were so open to letting you get to know them
yeah,
or getting their information out, it highlights them more and really elevates some of their, experiences as well, and I know, we appreciate, like, how open Guy has been with the volleyball program, and
yeah,
and I think that's just, uh, a small part of helping elevate, what they've been able to do because, they do a great job of that as well, so, like you said, highlight your kids, push them out there, whether it's through us or other media there's so
yeah,
many
yeah,
other media sources at this time and maybe it's not the old school newspaper or radio. There's a lot of radio stations that are. I like that. That there's radio stations that are still out there promoting it. We like having the opportunity to do it. There's a lot of places that are giving kids opportunities. So to those other places as well, do your best to highlight these kids as well. And I know some of the newer ones are doing a really good job of highlighting kids, and that's what we want. That's the main thing we want out of this to publicize the kids in the southeast because they don't always get the same publicity or sometimes opportunities, and sometimes the publicity can give them more opportunities and. Uh, the more the merrier. So let's
I
be friends.
I think that's well said. And I think that's an awesome place to end this week. I
Yeah.
think that's really well said, and I think that that's why it's a privilege to be part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we appreciate it. Tuesday night, live stream, Dewey and Shayne will be at Hatton Gymnasium at Chillicothe. If you can't get out and watch it, make sure to check out on YouTube. I think he didn't verify that there's going to be another Road Eats episode this week with Derek, but watch it. It's pretty entertaining. Like Derek does a good job with it. His uncle does a good job of filming it, and then his dad is very entertaining. Joel is one of those like really good people. So if you've ever like just sat down and talked to Derek, and like he's pretty fun to talk to, you know where he gets it from. His mom and dad are great people.
Yeah.
Brock, another one of those really good people as well.
Yeah.
And then, you're going to be with Carson and Kenneth on Friday at Piketon.
Hey, shout out to Kenneth. He
Phew,
does an incredible
he's-
job
yeah.
behind the scenes, and it's amazing what he does to solve so many problems. So I'm glad you mentioned him, like because you know that's another just under the radar type of person that's just doing a lot for kids.
And, we've had, so we're all a little older. I'll put you and me in the
A
same.
little.
Yeah. But like Dewey's 22. Carson, I don't think is 21 yet. I know he's a senior at OU, so he might be
Yeah.
21. But Carson does a really good job of calling games.
He does.
Kenneth is 20, I think. He is 20 because I was twice his age for like 2 days, and now I'm older than twice his age. So we've got like just young people that do a really good job.
Yeah.
We've got Austin Hanna goes out and covers game. I shouted out Raymond earlier. He's a 17-year-old. I know we had a kid this week take pictures down at the Rock from Hillsboro, who's also a high school student who does a great job. It's really fun seeing the next group of media. I know there's a media group out of I believe Portsmouth that has a couple of high school kids. One that calls games for him that's called Games First Before. Malachi does a great job. It's going to be really good. He's pretty good now, and just is going to keep getting better and better. I see him as in that next group of young kids that do a really good job. Yeah, so if you want to get involved in media, do it. You've got a bunch of chances and whatnot, and I know the group that's down the road, they do a really good job because they've got like 26 stations. So you got your chances out there. So take advantage of it if you want to do it. Grow yourself. And overall, we appreciate you joining us here on Southern Ohio Sports Authority. For Shayne Combs, I'm John Bruce. Have a great rest of your week.